Chapter 1502. The Gate of Time? Su Yu touched the stone that was full of vicissitudes of time. In the huge ruins, only two items resisted the annihilation of the power of time and space and survived to this day. One was the ice stone that caused the ancient ruins to fall into the frozen time and space. The other was this ancient gate of time. I'm leaving. Don't worry, the line of fate between you still exists. Bai Wanqing comforted him and silently left, giving Su Yu some quiet space. Su Yu was lost in thought and did not notice her departure. After a long time, Su Yu took out all the stones and reassembled them into the Gate of Time. Although the gate was formed, it was full of cracks and had lost its function. After carefully examining it for a long time, Su Yu stared at the dim and almost obliterated words of the heavenly book and murmured, "Could it be that by reshaping these heavenly book words I can recreate the Gate of Time?" Thinking of this, Su Yu tried to refresh the blurry heavenly book words with divine blood. As a result, as soon as the divine blood touched the heavenly book words, it was pushed away by an inexplicable force, and the divine blood that stained it was directly repelled. Repelling divine blood. Su Yu murmured for a long time and took out a drop of the divine blood of the heaven-defying divine warrior. When smeared on the blurry heavenly book words, there was still a force repelling it, but the repelling force was far weaker than that of ordinary divine blood. A heavenly book word was refreshed, as if it was brand new. However, before Su Yu could rejoice, the divine blood of the heaven-defying divine warrior was also repelled. Even the divine blood of the heaven-defying divine warrior doesn't work? Su Yu felt a sense of urgency and took out a drop of nearly transparent divine blood. This was the divine blood of the first emperor, the World Annihilation Emperor. The only hope to recreate the Gate of Time and find Xia Jingyu. Taking a deep breath, Su Yu carefully smeared a drop of the World Annihilation Emperor's divine blood on it. Unexpectedly, there was no rejection. Instead, there was a sense of intimacy. A heavenly book word was actively absorbed, and the handwriting was repeated perfectly and clearly. The cracks near this heavenly book word also disappeared automatically. Seeing this, Su Yu was overjoyed. It really works. He thought of writing with divine blood. It was all because of the heavenly book inscriptions that suppressed the sinful girl in the mysterious crystal mountains. The 9 emperors used their flesh and blood to condense the stone tablet and wrote the heavenly book inscriptions with divine blood to suppress the sinful girl and the world annihilation dragon. Then, Su Yu could also write the heavenly book words with the blood of the emperor. Su Yu couldn't wait to continue writing. However, the strange thing was that Su Yu couldn't refresh the second character of the heavenly book no matter what. It wasn't that the divine blood couldn't stain it, but that Su Yu's fingers couldn't touch the words of the heavenly book. They were controlled by a mysterious force, and his fingers couldn't reach the target. After carefully analyzing the 2 words of the heavenly book that had succeeded and failed, Su Yu found that the former was the words of the heavenly book that he recognized, while the latter was unfamiliar to him. He tried to refresh the few heavenly book words that he could recognize. As expected, there were no obstacles. As for those he didn't recognize, Su Yu couldn't even touch them. A trace of discouragement appeared in his heart. I was indeed too simple-minded. Unless I can recognize all the words of the heavenly book, it's impossible to reconstruct the stone tablet. Xia Jingyu, where are you? Su Yu laughed bitterly. After being discouraged for a moment, Su Yu regained his spirit. He had never been a person who would easily give in, so how could he be discouraged at the last moment? Reconstructing the Gate of Time was the last obstacle in finding Xia Jingyu. The more critical the moment, the more he had to keep his cool. Phew. I really have to go into seclusion. Su Yu took out the Book of First Heavens. Comprehending the heavenly book was one of the goals of his seclusion. However, Su Yu wouldn't forget that he had a more important goal for this seclusion: to rescue Luo Xue. Luo Xue was captured because of him, and he was duty-bound to rescue her. However, facing Wushuang, Gu Taishu, and Dakini alone, Su Yu was more likely to lose. The previous battle in the ruins was enough to prove everything. Gu Taishu was too difficult to deal with, and his strength was almost on par with Su Yu. If he couldn't improve his combat strength, this trip would be in vain. With a thought, Su Yu took out the Milky Way star sand in his palm. Endless starlight shone, illuminating the secret room like a dazzling starry sky. It was as beautiful as a fairyland. All of a sudden, the starlight condensed into the shape of a crane. It said, "Greetings, Master. How can I help you?" Su Yu's eyes shone and he said, "All these years, have you captured the consciousness hidden in the Milky Way star sand again?" Years ago, after fulfilling Tianjizi's last wish, the artifact's spirit crane deity said that at that moment it had captured a consciousness existing in the Milky Way star sand. This had always been a thorn in Su Yu's heart, and he couldn't get over it for a long time. The crane deity said, "Regrettably, since then, that consciousness seemed to be hiding on purpose, and never showed up again. I've been searching all the time, but I couldn't detect its existence at all." "Is that so?" Su Yu's face turned gloomy. "That consciousness, what was it? Why did it exist in the Milky Way star sand? Could it be related to Tianjizi in some other way? Or, did Tianjizi hide something from Su Yu?" With doubts, Su Yu said, "Continue to monitor it, and once you find it, pull out that consciousness immediately." "Yes," Su Yu said again. "Now I need you to purify something." "What is it?" "The blood of the ancient god Jiulong." Su Yu pointed at the crown on his head, which contained a letter written by the ancient god Jiulong with his own divine blood. The artifact's spirit crane deity immediately turned into a galaxy and enveloped the crown. By isolating the crown, it could also purify the divine blood on the letter. Now that the Milky Way star sand was under Su Yu's control, the purification ability was 10 times better than before. Moreover, the ancient god Jiulong had been missing for many years, and even though the divine blood resisted, it was not as strong as before. An hour later, a drop of divine blood was purified. Strangely, the blood of the ancient god Jiulong was neither golden nor milky white, and neither was it transparent, but it was colorful. Spread out on his palm, it did not look like divine blood, but more like spiritual liquid, filled with extremely overbearing energy. Even Su Yu had an impulse to swallow it. Licking his lips eagerly, Su Yu's eyes were slightly burning. He could feel that if he swallowed this divine blood, he would gain endless benefit. However, he had extraordinary willpower. Su Yu could not withstand the blood of an emperor, let alone the blood of the ancient god Jiulong. Suppressing the impulse, Su Yu sealed it in the jade bottle, and waited for the Milky Way star sand to extract all the divine blood on the letter. 3 days and 3 nights later, the artifact's spirit crane deity's feathers were dim, and it looked haggard. The starlight flickered and disappeared. "Go and rest." Freed, the artifact spirit crane deity returned to Su Yu's palm to rest. Su Yu looked at the thumb-sized jade bottle filled with the divine blood of the ancient god Jiulong, and his eyes were filled with delight. "I wonder what the divine blood of the ancient god Jiulong will evolve into after I give it to the divine nine-dragon cauldron." Su Yu had long wanted to try, but he dared not reveal the divine nine-dragon cauldron under the nose of the epic-making dragon. Opening the jade bottle, Su Yu dropped the divine blood on his forehead, 1 drop at a time. The divine nine-dragon cauldron, which had been very quiet, suddenly vibrated, setting off a huge soul storm in Su Yu's mind. The divine cauldron shook violently, trembling like never before. The dragon of death and the black dragon, which were 30% crystallized, were all crystallized after receiving the first drop of the ancient god Jiulong's blood. Su Yu was overjoyed. A drop of divine blood directly crystallized 2/3 of the dragon? But this was just the beginning. On the giant cauldron, the purple dragon of time, the red dragon of space, the white dragon of soul, the emerald dragon of life, and the black dragon of death, which had just crystallized, all flew out from the divine nine-dragon cauldron. They circled around the divine nine-dragon cauldron, constantly sucking the ancient god Julong's blood into the divine cauldron. They flew hurriedly, but could not keep up with the speed of the divine blood. The divine nine-dragon cauldron shook even more violently. Right at that moment, it moved on its own, flew out of Su Yu's mind, and appeared in front of Su Yu. The giant cauldron turned upside down, and swallowed the whole jade bottle impatiently. Su Yu was shocked, and hurriedly threw the jade bottle away. He dodged to the side, and watched the divine nine-dragon cauldron swallow the jade bottle crazily. Buzz! With a dull sound, the divine nine-dragon cauldron seemed to be greatly satisfied. Its 3 feet landed on the ground, making a dull, sonorous sound. The 5 flying dragons also flew back to the divine nine-dragon cauldron, but different from before, they were a size bigger. The scent they emitted was also completely different from before. Just as Su Yu was surprised, the divine nine-dragon cauldron suddenly shone with colorful light. 100 drops of the ancient god Julong's blood had been diluted into a whole cauldron. Su Yu tried to take out a drop, and the diluted divine blood automatically integrated into Su Yu's body. As a result, Su Yu's heart thumped wildly. It was a heart that had been replaced by the fragment of the Great Path Rules, and now it was beating violently. Visible to the naked eye, the fragment of the Great Path Rules was expanding tremendously. It was originally only the size of a heart, but now it had expanded to cover Su Yu's entire chest. The fragment of the Great Path Rules can still grow? Su Yu was dumbfounded. The strangest thing was that the barrier between him and the fragment of the Great Path Rules had disappeared under the effect of the diluted divine blood. It was replaced by intimacy, as if it were the Great Path Rules growing in Su Yu's body. Is the blood of the ancient god Nine Dragons so magical? Su Yu was amazed. He tried to swallow another drop, and the fragment of the chain unexpectedly expanded again. This time, it covered his entire torso. He looked inside and saw that his entire torso had been replaced by a complete chain, which was 10 times the size of the previous fragment. My torso has become the Great Path Rules chain? Su Yu couldn't describe his feelings in words. However, his hands seemed to be out of control, and he wanted to take another drop of divine blood. At this moment, the divine nine-dragon cauldron dodged by itself, and its whole body trembled. This was a warning. Su Yu was suddenly awakened, and he hurriedly withdrew his hand. He said in horror, "What happened to me just now?" He clearly didn't want to take another drop, but his body was a little out of control. He looked at his body carefully. If he took another drop of divine blood, his limbs would also be replaced by the Great Path Rules chain. At that time, would Su Yu be a human, or a link in the Great Path Rules chain? As he thought of this, Su Yu broke out in a cold sweat. Sensing that Su Yu had regained consciousness, the ancient god Nine Dragon shrank to the size of a palm and flew back into Su Yu's palm. Su Yu was surprised. In the past, the divine nine-dragon cauldron had only occupied Su Yu's mind, and no matter what Su Yu did, it wouldn't move an inch. Why didn't it return to his mind now? Is it the blood of the ancient god Nine-Dragon that satisfies it completely, or does it make it strong enough? It doesn't need to hide in my mind? Su Yu was surprised. Chapter 1503. Just 2 drops of diluted ancient god Nine Dragon's blood were enough to cause the divine Nine Dragon's cauldron to undergo earth-shattering changes. Could it be that he had purposely left a letter in divine blood for Su Yu? After muttering to himself for a long time, Su Yu contemplated his gains. The first was the complete crystallization of the Dragon of Death. The second was the evolution of the 5 powers of the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron that he had obtained long ago. The third was the body of rules. Su Yu believed that unless it was an attack at the level of the Great Path Rules, it would be difficult to injure him in the slightest. His only weak point was his head. Fourth, the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron could finally be used by Su Yu. With such a great harvest, Su Yu's confidence in rescuing Luo Xue in 2 months' time was boosted. However, this was not enough. Su Yu took out the green stone slab again. The last level, the soul-devouring realm. He had been stuck at the early stage for a long time. After many years of accumulation, he had long since shown signs of breaking through to the middle stage. All he lacked was a period of meditation. With the Book of First Heavens in his left hand and the heavens sun gazing at air in his right, Su Yu immediately immersed himself in them and began a long period of comprehension. At the same time, somewhere in the Milky Way, space-time fluctuated. Like broken glass, the Milky Way cracked layer by layer, forming a dense spider web. Suddenly, space and time fluctuated, and 4 figures fell out one after another. They were Zhan Wushuang, the Dakini, Gu Taishu, and the captured Luo Xue. Gu Taishu was especially disheveled. Lingering fear lingered in the depths of his eyes. He said, "I haven't seen him for 10 years. How did he become so powerful? I finally managed to cultivate the 9-spirit physique, but I'm actually still inferior to him." Zhan Wushuang said indifferently, "It's normal that you're not as good as him. He has the defying intent and was born with the ability to break the shackles. He has been blessed with luck all his life, and his creation is great. It's not something that a 9-spirit constitution can compare to." Upon hearing this, Gu Taishu hammered his thigh fiercely. "I'm not convinced. Why am I inferior to him? If I can successfully cultivate the body of 9 gods, he won't even be a threat to me." Upon hearing this, Zhan Wushuang glanced at him indifferently. "I suggest that you don't think about this divine body anymore. The process of cultivating it harms the harmony of the heavens. It's hard for you to have a good ending." The body of 9 gods was a fragment of a frozen ancient almighty being's memory in the ancient ruins. This divine body was extremely terrifying. In that fragment of memory, it displayed a power comparable to an overlord of the galaxy. From then on, Gu Taishu could not forget this divine body. However, this divine physique was either innate or acquired. His body of 9 spirits was one of the special constitutions that could evolve into this divine body. However, the process of evolution was too bloody. It required one to constantly devour the cultivation of others, and those who were devoured would often die in agony and torment. Gu Taishu's eyes flickered with hostility, and he was extremely unwilling to give up. If Zhan Wushuang had not been suppressing him all this while, he would have long used the creatures of the Celestial Realm Empire to cultivate. However, he was no match for Zhan Wushuang, so he could only swallow his anger. "Shouldn't we find a place to hide first?" Mother Voidwalker said unhappily. Her face was pale, and she had lost quite a bit of her divine essence. Her cultivation base was rapidly declining. Gu Taishu glared at Luo Xue, a ferocious glint in his eyes. "Before you hide, shouldn't you kill Su Yu's woman first? Otherwise, if Su Yu were to sense something on her body, wouldn't he be in endless trouble?" Seeing this, the Dakini's murderous look appeared on her face, and she said gloomily, "Su Yu killed my whole family, so I killed one of his women. That's too easy for him." As she spoke, she formed a claw with her fingers and tore at his abdomen. Clang, however, with a soft sound, Zhan Wushuang's golden armor shook, and his wrist blocked the claw. Mother Voidwalker said, "Why are you blocking me?" Zhan Wushuang said placidly, "Didn't you notice that one person is missing? You mean Han Xian? She didn't manage to escape?" Mother Voidwalker was slightly disappointed. The pity in Gu Taishu's eyes intensified, and there was a vague sense of great disappointment in his eyes. Zhan Wushuang said, "She was captured by Su Yu. That's a pity. Although I want to save this little girl, things are different now. If I rush to the Celestial Realm Empire now, I'll be dead," Mother Voidwalker said. Zhan Wushuang said, "There's no need to rescue her. I've reached an agreement with Su Yu to exchange hostages." Upon hearing this, Gu Taishu raised his eyebrows and said with dissatisfaction, You mean, you want to return Su Yu's woman to him? Zhan Wushuang stared at him. Why? Do you want my junior sister to die at his hands? Wisps of murderous intent surrounded his body, which made Gu Taishu feel guilty. No, I just feel that exchanging hostages like this is too easy for Su Yu. Why don't we give his woman a taste of suffering first? Otherwise, how can we vent our hatred? Zhan Wushuang's murderous intent intensified, and he said firmly, Don't touch a single hair on her. This is also the agreement between me and Su Yu. Gu Taishu was secretly annoyed and he said, If you don't hurt her, Su Yu might hurt Han Xian. At the very least, we should put a seal on her, and after exchanging hostages, we can activate the seal immediately. We can't let him get away with it. Zhan Wushuang's eyes were full of disdain, and he said bluntly, Don't measure the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure. Su Yu has always been a man of his word. Since he has promised, he will never hurt Han Xian. Moreover, the disdain in Zhan Wushuang's eyes intensified. He is not a narrow-minded person who wants to get revenge by hurting a woman. Gu Taishu's heart was burning with anger, and he sneered. Don't you think too highly of him? Don't forget, you are enemies now. Zhan Wushuang laughed. He is indeed an enemy, but I have to admit that he is a perfect enemy in all aspects, be it in terms of strength or character. Only such a person is qualified to compete with me, Zhan Wushuang, for the top of the world. Gu Taishu sneered, but no matter how one looked at it, his smile was full of jealousy. Anyway, don't touch a single hair on this lady. Otherwise, if my junior sister gets hurt, don't blame me for not caring about our past friendship. Zhan Wushuang said coldly. Dakini remained silent, and Gu Taishu dared not act rashly. If you have no objections, let's go to the world of divine remains immediately. The exchange location is there, and we will go there in advance to prepare for any ambushes. Zhan Wushuang said. As he spoke, he pointed at the air and untied Luo Xue. He said calmly, Miss Luo, you heard what we said just now. Come with us. Luo Xue blinked her bright eyes, wondering if she should seize the opportunity to escape. In the end, Zhan Wushuang seemed to have seen through her thoughts and smiled lightly. As long as Miss Luo doesn't sneak up on us, you can do anything you want, including escape. Upon hearing that, Luo Xue knew that she would most likely not be able to escape. In front of this peerless heaven ruler who could rival Su Yu, especially when he was on guard, the chances of escape were slim. A few days later, the group arrived at the world of divine remains. Since the last time they took away the all-access merchant god, the place had been dead silent and devoid of living creatures. Zhan Wushuang looked around and said, The one who destroyed the world of divine remains was Su Yu. To think that he could do such an earth-shattering thing when he was merely a mortal fairy, he deserves praise. Luo Xue's ears twitched. You know a lot about Brother Su? Zhan Wushuang looked at her and said, It's hard to know. Why, do you want to hear it? Luo Xue blushed and snorted. I don't want to hear it from a bad guy like you. Then I won't say it. Hey, why are you so annoying? Luo Xue stamped her feet angrily. Zhan Wushuang couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Luo Xue, lost in thought. After a long while, he sighed. Once upon a time, my junior sister was like this. Oh? Luo Xue's eyes turned, as if she had noticed something. Zhan Wushuang hid his surprise and said, There are many stories about him. I'll tell you about them slowly. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. During these 2 months, Luo Xue patiently listened to Zhan Wushuang's stories about Su Yu. Sometimes she was surprised, sometimes she was amused, and sometimes she was in awe. It was only when she learned that Su Yu had a legitimate wife that she was disappointed for a long time. However, she had been mentally prepared for this. How could a dragon among men like Su Yu not have a wife? I'd like to see what kind of fairy his wife is, to be able to gain Brother Su's favor, Luo Xue said with a smile. There was indignation in her eyes. Zhan Wushuang smiled lightly. She is a woman with great talent and physique. She is not inferior to you. However, these are not the reasons why Su Yu favors her. The reason is that she is devoted to him. I don't believe that there is anyone in this world who loves Su Yu more than she does. Luo Shui bit her red lips and said indignantly, "Are you so sure? Because she used to be my junior sister." I, Zhan Wushuang, have never judged a person wrongly, Zhan Wushuang said. Luo Shui fell silent and clenched her fists. Zhan Wushuang looked at her. For some reason, he felt sympathetic toward her. There is nothing more painful in life than falling flowers yearn for love, but heartless water flows. Everything needs to be endured, and one needs to free oneself. Free oneself? Luo Shui laughed self-deprecatingly. Ever since she married Su Yu in the dream of the world of mortals and bore him a child, she could no longer free herself from the net of mortals. With a low sigh, Zhan Wushuang stood up and looked at the other two people in the depths of the ruins. He said indifferently, 2 months have passed. I advise you to leave as soon as possible. Why should you stay and take the risk? The Dakini said, Han Xian is my son's disciple after all. How could I bear to see her fall into the hands of the enemy? I'll stay. If anything happens, I can lend you a hand. Zhan Wushuang said indifferently, there is no need for help. Su Yu will not break his promise. It is only an exchange of hostages. He will not attack again. Gu Taishu said warmly, we are just taking precautions. If Su Yu does not break his promise, who knows if his subordinates will play tricks in order to gain merit. After some thought, Zhan Wushuang felt that it made sense. He trusted Su Yu, but he might not trust the others. Thank you very much, Zhan Wushuang said. I will patrol the surroundings again to confirm if our retreat route is safe. You wait here and remember to protect Miss Luo. After saying that, Zhan Wushuang left alone. An hour later, Zhan Wushuang had gone far away, and his aura had disappeared without a trace. The Dakini, who was sitting cross-legged and healing herself, opened her eyes slowly. Her gaze met Gu Taishu's unexpectedly, and both of them revealed gloomy, cold smiles. Gu Taishu sneered and said, Zhan Wushuang's combat power is indeed unparalleled, but it is a pity that he is simple-minded. If he was half as smart as Su Yu, I would not have thought of this. The Dakini stood up slowly and stared at Luo Shui. She said indifferently, he is finally gone. We can carry out our plan with peace of mind. Luo Shui, who was recuperating, immediately sensed that something was wrong. She soared into the air and shouted, What do you want to do? If you dare to harm a single hair of mine, Zhan Wushuang will never let you off. Chapter 1504. Humph! Don't use him to pressure us. Gu Taishu snorted coldly. We've endured for 2 months just for this day. Luo Shui was extremely intelligent, and he immediately understood their intentions. He said in surprise, You want to trigger a fight between Su Yu and Zhan Wushuang? If anything were to happen to her, Su Yu would definitely hurt Han Xian in his rage. If Han Xian was hurt, Zhan Wushuang would definitely fight Su Yu to the end. Gu Taishu snorted coldly. Zhan Wushuang is such a traitor. We were harmed so badly by Su Yu, yet he still spoke up for him. It is best for such a person to die in Su Yu's hands. The Dakini's eyes emitted an ice-cold gaze, which seemed like 2 sharp blades. She then said, I spent so much effort to train him, yet in the end, he doesn't listen to me anymore. Such an ungrateful person is useless to me, so it's better to let him and Su Yu injure each other. It turned out that the Dakini and Gu Taishu had secretly reached an agreement during these 2 months. They were preparing to defect to the demons. They were now the common enemy of all living beings in the universe. Only the demon world could protect them. However, before they set off for the demon dimension, they really couldn't swallow their anger. They didn't want Su Yu to succeed in rescuing the hostages. Hence, they had planned for Su Yu and Zhan Wushuang to fight each other. However, Zhan Wushuang was still guarding Luo Shui, so they couldn't do anything. Now that he was patrolling, it gave them the best opportunity. Attack! Mother Voidwalker said, transforming into a series of afterimages. Luo Shui was furious and said, "Fine. Let's see what you can do to me." Silent Soul Exterminating Curse. Luo Shui immediately used a powerful technique. Terrifying wizard power ripples swept out and annihilated all living souls. How could Mother Dakini, whose cultivation had dropped by an entire realm, dare to take it head-on? With a muffled groan, he was forced to retreat several thousand feet. However, Gu Taishu took advantage of the opportunity to sneak around to the back without anyone noticing. After Luo Shui launched the wizard curse, he immediately attacked. Body of 9 spirits. The surface of Gu Taishu's body was covered with layers of divine shadows, and he attacked Luo Shui forcefully. When it was destroyed by the witchcraft spell, the shadow of the deity in front of it flew out automatically and acted as a shield. After 5 consecutive sounds of annihilation, 6 of the illusory figures of the gods were destroyed, but there were still 4 that surrounded him. At this moment, Gu Taishu was already within reach. The people of the witch tribe were good at sorcery, but they were not good at close combat. Luo Shui made a prompt decision. Soul Shadow Shifting Spell. His silhouette drifted and disappeared without a trace in an instant, causing Gu Taishu to pounce on empty air. Before he could regain his composure, a bone-chilling incantation rang out not far behind him again, soundless soul-destroying curse. Boom boom, the tyrannical annihilation ripple swept over like a raging storm. The shadow of a deity on the surface of Gu Taishu's body was rapidly being destroyed. Gu Taishu was startled and hurriedly fled. However, the 4th layer of the deity's phantom was destroyed too quickly, and it was still swept by the aftermath of the wizard power's ripples. Its divine soul was damaged on the spot, and it let out a blood-curdling screech as it stumbled forward. "What are you waiting for, Mother Dakini?" he shouted angrily. "Take that thing out." Mother Dakini had already moved to Luo Shui's side. She frowned and threw out a golden cage. The cage expanded from small to large, covering a radius of several million zhang. At the same time, a tyrannical suppression force came crashing down. Luo Shui saw that the situation was not good, so he withdrew and retreated. However, under the suppression, his limbs were stiff and his movements were slow. With a rumble, Luo Shui was trapped in the golden cage. The cage shrank rapidly, and finally shrank to the size of a human, firmly trapping Luo Shui's body. Only then did Mother Dakini and Gu Taishu rush over. They struck Luo Shui's abdomen with their palms, forcibly interrupting the sorcery she was performing. Gu Taishu wiped the sweat off his face, and his face was filled with anger. Su Yu's random woman is so difficult to deal with. I was almost killed by him. Fortunately, Mother Dakini was prepared, and she had this golden god trapping cage as her trump card. This item was prepared by Mother Dakini for Zhan Wushuang, in case Zhan Wushuang tried to harm her. Mother Dakini stared at Luo Shui, who was struggling with hatred in her eyes. Little b****, did you think this day would come when you destroyed my physical body? Although Luo Shui was restrained, her eyes were full of contempt. You can be complacent all you want. Brother Su will destroy your bodies and souls sooner or later. Although the Xing River is vast, there is no place for you to hide. Even the so-called demonic dimension can't stop him. Ha ha! Gu Taishu laughed coldly. B****, you're still speaking up for Su Yu even when you're about to die. I don't know if our bodies and souls will be destroyed, but you, Humph, I'll make you beg for death. The more I hurt you, the more pain Su Yu will feel. Only when he's in pain can I vent my hatred. Luo Shui said disdainfully, Haha, Zhan Wushuang is right. If you want to get the thrill of revenge by hurting a woman, you won't have any future in this life. Her words undoubtedly stabbed Gu Taishu's heart. He bellowed angrily, Shut up! Who is Zhan Wushuang? I'm just not as lucky as him. Who is Su Yu? He was like an ant under my feet in the past, and he was just lucky. Ha ha, Luo Xue sneered. Others are strong because they're lucky. Who are you? Aren't you just relying on your natural constitution? I'm stronger than you, and it doesn't matter whether you agree with me or not. B*tch shut up. Gu Taishu seemed to feel deeply humiliated. With a furious bellow, he slammed his palm on her shoulder, shattering it on the spot with a cracking sound. Luo Xue gave a muffled groan, her face contorted in pain. But her eyes were still filled with contempt as she stared at Gu Taishu. Gu Taishu was filled with hatred when he saw her contemptuous look. All of a sudden, Gu Taishu seemed to have thought of something. His anger faded, and he sized up Luo Xue's lithe body and exquisite face. He said with a faint smile, "The women who have taken a fancy to Su Yu are all stunning beauties. If Su Yu were to see your tormented corpse placed before his eyes, I wonder how he would feel?" Luo Xue's pupils shrank, and panic flashed across her face. She was not afraid of death, but she was afraid of being raped and defiled. She was exposed before Su Yu. "How dare you?" Luo Xue said through gritted teeth. Gu Taishu laughed heartily. "Ha ha, that's the expression I want." His face was ferocious as he approached step by step, his eyes filled with greed and lust. "So you slept with my woman back then. Today, I'll let him have a taste of the humiliation of being trampled on by the woman he loves." Roar. Letting out a beast-like roar, Gu Taishu pounced forward. Luo Xue's eyes were resolute. She was not afraid of death, but she was afraid of dying in front of Su Yu. Even if she were to die, she wanted to die with a clean conscience. "Brother Su, you and I are just a dream in the mortal world. How good would it have been if you hadn't woken me up from the dream?" Luo Xue said as tears rolled down her cheeks. She closed her eyes slowly. A surge of sorcery energy slowly seeped out from her chest. That was one of the secret techniques passed down to her by the Moonwatch sect leader. Just like the soul-binding spell, it was a forbidden secret technique that could only be used as a last resort. The function of this secret technique was that one could commit suicide without the need to cast a spell. She wanted to prove her innocence with her death. She would never allow Gu Taishu to possess her. "Brother Su, goodbye," Luo Xue said slowly. The sorcery energy in her chest erupted in an instant, and it was about to burst through her heart. But right at that moment, a hand suddenly pressed against her back, and a warm, thick power suppressed the sorcery energy. Luo Xue was shocked. Turning around, she saw that it was neither Gu Taishu nor Dakini. It was Zhan Wushuang, who was supposed to be far away. "If Miss Luo dies, I will be in a difficult position." Zhan Wushuang's face was surprisingly calm. He was so calm that Luo Xue felt like she had seen him before. That was Su Yu's unique expression. It was the calmness before extreme killing intent rose in his heart. Gu Taishu, who was pouncing over, screamed and staggered backward as if he had seen a ghost. Because it was so sudden, he fell to the ground on his butt. Swallowing hard, he said in a trembling voice, Didn't you leave?" Dakini's expression changed drastically, and she retreated quietly. Zhan Wushuang suppressed the outburst of sorcery energy and withdrew his palm slowly. He stared at the two of them with calm eyes, as indifferent as the Brahma deity. "If I didn't leave, how could I be sure that you didn't have ulterior motives?" It turned out that he didn't trust the two of them at all. Therefore, he pretended to leave to make sure that the two of them weren't playing tricks. Otherwise, it would be too late for the two of them to play tricks when the hostage exchange took place. Fortunately, they had exposed themselves easily. Gu Taishu spat angrily and said, Brother Zhan, you misunderstood us. We were just joking with her." Before he could finish his words, Zhan Wushuang teleported over with his hands clasped behind his back. With a cold look in his eyes, he stepped on Gu Taishu's abdomen. Gu Taishu was horrified. He shouted anxiously, "Brother Zhan, listen to my explanation." I. With a loud explosion, Gu Taishu's abdomen was pierced through, and his godly spirit was destroyed. The cultivation that Gu Taishu had painstakingly cultivated throughout his life was gone. My cultivation! Gu Taishu spat out blood and screamed miserably. Zhan Wushuang moved away expressionlessly. The next moment, he teleported in front of Dakini and raised his palm to slap her forehead. Dakini was only left with a soul body. How could she avoid Zhan Wushuang's palm? With a miserable scream, half of Dakini's body was smashed, and her divine soul was severely injured. With such injuries, she wouldn't be able to live for long unless a powerful expert intervened. Zhan Wushuang withdrew his palm indifferently and said coldly, "Destroying your cultivation and destroying half of your soul is because you were disrespectful to Miss Luo and had ulterior motives toward Han Xian. I spared your lives for the sake of your past kindness. From now on, all the grievances between us will be written off. If you offend me again, you will die." Zhan Wushuang's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Get lost. Dakini and Gu Taishu were lucky to survive. How could they dare to stay? With the help of Dakini, Gu Taishu, whose cultivation had been destroyed, boarded a Starry River divine boat with her and flew toward the demonic world. Zhan Wushuang turned around and untied the golden god trapping cage. Luo Xue was injured. He coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood and immediately began to recover. Zhan Wushuang said apologetically, "I'm sorry. I'm late." Luo Xue shook his head and said, "Don't blame yourself. What you did was right. Instead of letting them do evil things, it was better to expose them as soon as possible to avoid hurting Brother Su." Chapter 1505. Luo Xue blushed, but his eyes rippled. She had done what Su Yu's wife had done. At least, she had caught up to her in some aspects. Zhan Wushuang's evaluation caused Luo Xue to be overjoyed. He was as happy as if he had drunk honey. "Let's wait for a few more days. I believe that Su Yu is almost ready to set off," Zhan Wushuang said, his eyes filled with anticipation. Luo Xue noticed Qin Shi's expression, and he said hesitantly, "You seem to be extremely special to that junior sister of yours? Is she your sweetheart?" Zhan Wushuang remained silent and did not answer. Divine Realm Empire. In the past 2 months, all the major cavern worlds of the Empire had launched vigorous pre-war preparations. Countless cave abode powerhouses responded to the call of the gods and formed an anti-demon army. The elites were then transferred and incorporated into the 10 fleets of the God Domain Empire. The leaders of the fleet were Yongye Chushua, Yongye Wuheng, Bai Wanqing, the eldest prince, and Imu and the other level 4 deities whom he had subdued with the illusionary soul realm. The overall strength of the 10 fleets had a qualitative leap compared to the past. He believed that they would be able to resist the large-scale attack of the devils. In the outside world, preparations were in full swing. Inside the secret chamber, Su Yu's isolation training was coming to an end. Soul devouring. A crack appeared on Su Yu's forehead. It was like a bottomless pit, and it emitted an endless suction force toward souls. All the living beings of the Divine Realm Empires, especially those near the Imperial Palace, felt their souls turn cold, as if they were being stared at by something terrifying. Yongye Chushua, Bai Wanqing, and Bai Wanqing, who were busy preparing, felt it most clearly. Yongye Wuheng said in surprise, "What a terrifying devouring power! Even my soul is shaken." Yongye Chushua was also a little uneasy. With such a devouring power, even the soul of a level 2 deity would not be able to escape if his soul left his body, right? Only Bai Wanqing stared in the direction of the secret chamber with her purple eyes and smiled faintly. "It seems that young master's magical power has improved." Just as they were talking, Bai Wanqing's expression suddenly changed and she whispered, "That's, under his purple eyes, one could clearly see the dense shadows of the chains of the great Tao laws floating above the secret chamber. The number was so great that it was unbelievable. But soon, the phenomenon disappeared. At the same time, Su Yu's aura emanated from the secret room. The three of them were overjoyed and hurried over. Suyu had already walked out of the secret room. His expression was calm, and his whole body emitted an indescribably peaceful aura, as if he was an ordinary person. But when they got close, there was an inexplicable force that prevented them from getting too close. Yongye Wuheng sized him up and said, "You seem to have changed a lot during your seclusion this time." Suyu chuckled. "I've made some slight improvements in some magical powers." Then, his eyes narrowed. "Is everything ready?" Everyone's expression turned cold. They were about to set off. Yongye Chushue said, "Get ready. This time, we will definitely rescue little sister Xue." When she was with Luo Xue, they were mostly jealous, but they were definitely not enemies. Ever since she was taken away, she was left alone and felt quite lonely. Unknowingly, the two of them had already established a subtle friendship, and they seemed like enemies yet weren't, like friends yet weren't. While Suyu was in seclusion, most of the preparations for the rescue operation were handled by her. Suyu said, "Bring Han Xian out." Yongye Chushue was already prepared. She sent out a message jade pendant, and someone immediately escorted Han Xian over. In the past 2 months, her injuries had fully recovered, and her face was much rosier. Her complexion was also very good, and it was obvious that she had not suffered any pain. Han Xian stared at Suyu without saying a word. Suyu glanced at her indifferently and released the shackles on her body. He said, "You heard the deal I made with Zhan Wushuang. I will give you freedom. As long as you don't attack or hurt anyone, you can do anything, including escape. As long as you have the ability to escape." Han Xian pursed her lips and lowered her head. Her expression could not be seen clearly, and she said, "I will not escape." "That's great." Suyu said expressionlessly, "Let's go." Yongye Chushue and Yongye Wuheng wanted to follow him, but Suyu refused, saying, "It's just an exchange of hostages. I can go alone. I need you to lead the team, and you can't leave." Only then did they give up. Yongye Chushue said, "Please be sure to bring little sister Xue back." Suyu nodded. "If I can't bring her back, I will bring back the heads of Zhan Wushuang and the others. I'll go first." After saying that, Suyu grabbed Han Xian and disappeared instantly with the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole. After Suyu left, Yongye Chushue and the others issued several military orders with Suyu's imperial jade seal in their hands. Before long, 10 fleets, hundreds of battleships, and thousands of divine boats, which were fully loaded with the strong men of the God Realm Empire, sailed into the Star River under the leadership of the three of them. My God! What are they going to do with so many battleships? I heard they are going to annihilate the Dakini and a few other survivors. I think so. I heard those survivors took an important hostage of ours. Emperor Yu was furious and mobilized all his troops to annihilate them. Yes, the Dakini is a cunning and powerful deity. No matter how many deities are mobilized, it won't be too much. In an instant, Suyu carried Han Xian across the Star River. At this moment, Han Xian finally spoke. She stared at Suyu's side profile, which had matured a lot, and said, "You have changed a lot." Suyu looked at her and said calmly, "People change. Haven't you changed as well? You used to be naive, innocent, and ignorant. What about now?" Now she was much more mature. She was no longer the ignorant girl she used to be. Han Xian clenched her fists and bit her lip. Her eyes were misty. "You used to be simple and kind. Now you are cold and heartless." Hee. Suyu laughed. He felt that Han Xian was like a child who stubbornly wanted to argue. He shook his head. He didn't want to argue. Say something. Han Xian turned her head and stared at him. Her eyes were full of grievance and displeasure. Suyu said calmly, "Say what? Is there anything we haven't finished talking about?" Han Xian clenched her fists tighter and bit her lips harder. She touched her chest, and her eyes became even more misty. You don't want to explain how you felt when you kicked me in the chest that day? I didn't want to hurt you, but why did you hurt me so cruelly?" She had been brooding over this incident for 2 months. If it had been anyone else who heard her, she would have thought it was reasonable. However, when Suyu kicked her, she felt as if something in her heart was broken. Suyu said calmly, "Are you trying to say that I still owe you? So, even if you are my enemy, I should show you mercy?" No. Unexpectedly, Han Xian shook her head. Her eyes were misty as she said, "You don't owe me anything, and I have never thought that you owed me anything." "Then, why do you think that I shouldn't hurt you?" Suyu said with a faint sneer. Han Xian opened her eyes and stared at Suyu. The misty tears in her eyes finally condensed into tears. She said, "Do you think that the time we spent in the Red Blood Palace is not worth mentioning?" Upon hearing this, Suyu was startled. He suddenly remembered that he had been chased by the 5 great bright light guards. He had fallen into the ice-sealed river because of the all-creation heavenly tribulation. He was in the river, and she was on the riverbank, looking at him curiously with her crystal-clear eyes. Then, he lied to her and hid that he was the real murderer that she was looking for. During that time, he even gave her a name. He named her Zixuan because she was wearing a purple dress. "I remember." Suyu revealed a nostalgic smile at the corners of his mouth. At that time, they were both teenagers. "You only remember?" Han Xuan's eyes were filled with disappointment. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she said, "It's no wonder that you could kick me so cruelly. In your eyes, that period of time is just a memory." Suyu was startled. "If I don't remember, will I still remember it?" Looking at Suyu's shocked expression, Han Xian wiped her tears and said with a self-mocking smile, "For you, it's just a fragment of your memory, which you can forget at any time. But for me, it's a mark that can't be erased. I really regret that I met you before Suyu could ask," she said angrily. "Go ahead and exchange me for that young lady's." After she spoke, she shut her mouth and eyes and stopped talking. She had met Suyu for the first time in the outside world. It was him who had taught her many things and opened the door to a new world for her. It was him who had brought her many joys and given her a second name. For her, Suyu was an unforgettable memory that couldn't be erased. Even though 10 years had passed, she still deeply cherished that memory, the friendship that she had carefully preserved. However, Suyu's kick had made her feel unfamiliar and painful. It turned out that she and Suyu had never shared that memory. Suyu was an experienced person. Hearing her words, he knew that he had left a deep impression in Han Xuan's life. It had nothing to do with love. It was just a vague attachment. His expression softened slightly, but he still said, "Kicking you is a punishment that you deserve. You can't tell right from wrong, and we don't know whether you're a friend or a foe. I gave you a warning. I didn't do anything wrong. If you don't like it, feel free to do so. I won't apologize." Han Xian, who had already felt wronged, clenched her fists when she heard this. She opened her eyes and glared at Suyu. "I hate you." "It doesn't matter." Suyu shrugged. He didn't care at all. Han Xian was so angry that she clenched her teeth. She wanted to fight with Suyu on the spot. However, she knew that she wouldn't be able to withstand more than a few blows from Suyu. She could only say bitterly, "I really regret letting you off so easily in the past." Humph. In the past, as an all-creation, she could torture Suyu to the point that he begged for mercy with a single finger. Now it was the complete opposite. Suyu chuckled. "Then you should make this your goal and train hard. If you can beat me, you can beat me all you want." Han Xian was infuriated. She clenched her teeth. "What are you so proud of? Life is full of ups and downs. In another 10 years, it's hard to say who will be stronger than the other. It's good that you're confident." Han Xian snorted angrily. "Just you wait. Remember what you said today. Sooner or later, I'll beat you up and pay you back for that kick. I'll make you apologize for that kick." "Fine, I'll wait for that day." Suyu smiled faintly. Han Xian clenched her fists. Her eyes shone again as if she had found her goal in life. In the next 2 days, Suyu used the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole continuously. He crossed countless galaxies, and was about to reach the world of divine remains. At the same time, Zhan Wushuang was waiting anxiously. On this day, Zhan Wushuang opened his eyes abruptly and looked into the distance. Luo Xue seemed to have sensed it too. He said, "Brothers Su and the others are here?" Chapter 1506. Boom. Boom. Thick, dark clouds rolled in from the horizon, demonic energy billowing. In the demonic energy, pairs of blood-red eyes appeared from time to time, exuding an extremely violent aura. Looking closely, two familiar figures could be seen. Gu Taishu Dakini. The holy magic hall of the demons? Zhan Wushuang's expression changed slightly. How did they contact the demonic dimension in just a few days and send their troops here so quickly? According to common sense, even if the holy magic hall sent their troops here, it would take as long as 2 months. It was absolutely impossible to arrive in 2 days. Why would the holy magic hall suddenly appear here? Suddenly, Zhan Wushuang found that there were 2 captured demons in the mass of demonic energy. Internal strife among the demons? Could it be that these demon gods of the holy magic hall came here to capture them? Zhan Wushuang analyzed. If that was the case, it made sense. But what's so special about those 2 demons? Did they send more than 30 deities of the holy magic hall personally? Luo Xue did not know the power of the holy magic hall. How confident are we to deal with them if we join forces? Zhan Wushuang said, "If I am alone, they can't do anything to me, but if I bring you along..." "Forget it, you go first. I believe Su Yu is also on his way here. If I meet him, let him take my junior sister back, and I will go back to the God Realm Empire to get her." Luo Xue said, "Aren't you afraid that Su Yu will refuse to return your junior sister?" Zhan Wushuang said, "It's better than you getting hurt here. If I can't take care of you, my junior sister will be in danger." Having said that, Luo Xue said, "Well, don't worry. If I go back, I believe Brother Su will not make things difficult for your junior sister. Goodbye." Having said that, Luo Xue retreated and flew in the direction of the God Realm Empire. However, after a few steps, the massive mass of demonic energy suddenly tumbled, and 9 extremely fierce roars shattered a nebula. Zhan Wushuang's eyes narrowed. What is that? With a swoosh, the demonic energy was pushed away, and 9 invisible things rushed out from it. They were 9 extremely ferocious beast heads with red eyes, full of bloodthirsty will. After Zhan Wushuang saw it clearly, his expression turned serious. Chaos Beast. It was rumored that there was an extremely frightening creature in the demon world called the Chaos Beast. It was born from the Chaos demonic chi. No matter which generation it was, there were only 18 of them. In this generation, 9 of them were personally trained by the Demon Emperor and were extremely ferocious. The other 9 were born with defects and were exiled to the galaxy. The 9 in front of him were a batch that the Demon King had personally raised. Any one of them had the terrifying power to devour a level 3 deity. All 9 of them could compete with a level 2 deity. Zhan Wushuang's face sank and he said, "This is a little troublesome. Miss Luo, flee quickly. I really can't take care of you." As Jiang Yi spoke, the 9 chaos beasts charged forward. Unparalleled tyrannical fist. Zhan Wushuang didn't dare to be careless at all. However, the chaos beast was immune to mystical abilities. It bit Zhan Wushuang's body and tore off pieces of flesh. Zhan Wushuang didn't even frown as he shouted, "Sovereign King Jiang Shani." A long robe formed by mountains and rivers was draped over his body. When the chaos beast bit again, it blocked the long robe. Unable to do anything, it could only bite through the sovereign King Jiang Shani first. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhan Wushuang summoned the heavenly throne of heaven and earth. A dazzling golden image of the heavenly throne descended, filled with a powerful suppressive force. The 9 chaos beasts were not immune to it either. They were suppressed on the spot, and their movements became slow. However, he couldn't retreat. If he did, the 9 chaos beasts would regain their freedom, and it would be even more dangerous. In the billowing demonic chi, Mother Dakini said to a level 3 deity, "General Demon I, that woman is the one I mentioned. She's the woman of the Emperor of the Divine Realm Empire. Only by capturing her can the enemy hold back." Holy Magic Hall generals were divided into 3 ranks: upper, middle, and lower. The general was second only to the senior commander and had level 3 cultivation. General Demon I was one of them. He was born with a third eye that was filled with mysterious power. He stared at the fleeing Luo Xue and smiled coldly. "Chase. I want him alive. Don't let me eat him." Roar, roar, roar. Under the demonic chi, 30 Holy Magic Hall demon gods pounced forward. They didn't have any intelligence, and their bodies were more agile than ordinary demon gods. In 5 minutes, they caught up to Luo Xue and pounced on him. Luo Xue was not afraid. He methodically used all kinds of sorcery to destroy these demon gods. However, what surprised Luo Xue was that these demon gods didn't seem to have divine souls. Or rather, if their divine souls were damaged, they couldn't feel it at all. Many sorcery that involved the soul actually didn't work. In addition, Luo Xue was already injured. He gradually couldn't take it anymore, but he still gritted his teeth and persevered. This stalemate lasted for several hours. 7 or 8 demon gods died. Luo Xue was covered in blood, but he still fought tenaciously. A bunch of trash. At that moment, there was a cold shout that sounded like thunder. General Demon I attacked. He suddenly appeared behind Luo Xue and gave him a vicious slap. As a demon god who was proficient in the physical body, the power of this slap was unparalleled. Luo Xue was directly sent flying by the slap. Her back was a bloody mess and covered in cracks. Although her sorcery power recovered quickly, it was already showing signs of weakness. Then, a giant palm grabbed Luo Xue's head from behind. Endless demon energy poured into her body and sealed her sorcery power. Swish! The demon eye leaped up and returned to the billowing demon energy. He coldly threw Luo Xue down. Immediately, a demon god captured him and made him kneel on the ground together with the other 2 demons who had been captured alive. Dakini couldn't help but laugh coldly. "Little b****, do you think you can escape? Aren't you still in our hands?" Gu Taishu was even more resentful. He pounced on her and said resentfully, "B****, you ruined my cultivation. If I don't kill you, I'll live in vain." Bang! But before he could pounce on her, he was sent flying by an iron fist. The one who attacked was none other than General Demon I. Gu Taishu was stunned and said, "General, what are you doing?" The demon I said coldly, "I'd like to ask you, what are you trying to do?" Gu Taishu pointed at her and said, "According to the agreement, if you capture her, can't you let me do whatever I want? As long as you don't kill her, you can do whatever you want." The demon I sneered. "Agreement? What agreement? Who can testify?" Upon hearing this, Gu Taishu was secretly angry, but he restrained himself and said, "Yes, I'm being silly." Dakini, who was beside him, also hid her strange expression and stood obediently at the side. It turned out that on their way to the demonic dimension, they had encountered a troop of demons who were trying to capture them. They had told them that the woman of the current emperor of the God Realm Empire was here. The 2 sides had agreed that Dakini and Gu Taishu would lead the way. After capturing the woman, the 2 of them would deal with her first before handing her over to the demons. They had thought that they could still take revenge on Suyu. Who knew that the demons wouldn't keep their word? The demon I said indifferently, "It's good that you know you're being silly. Why don't you take a look at the 2 of you? One is a piece of trash whose cultivation has been destroyed, and the other is only left with half of her soul. What right do you have to negotiate with me?" Yes, you're right, General Demon I, Gu Taishu said humbly, suppressing the humiliation in his heart. The demon eye snorted coldly and turned to stare at Zhang Wushuang with a strange look in his eyes. I didn't expect there to be such a talented strong man in the Star River God realm. He fought 9 beasts of chaos alone without being at a disadvantage. In the demonic dimension, his combat power is only below that of the demonic god of 6 paths. After a moment of silence, the demon eye said with some fear, "Let's go first. When the time for the beasts of chaos is up, they will be transported back to the demonic dimension." After saying this, the billowing demonic clouds quickly retreated. Zhang Wushuang, who had witnessed this scene, was filled with murderous intent, but he couldn't do anything about it. He regretted secretly. Why did he have to be kind and let go of Dakini and Gu Taishu? They didn't repent, and they still wanted to do evil even though they were in such dire straits. However, being trapped by 9 beasts of chaos, he couldn't leave at all. The demon eye led the many demonic gods and quickly disappeared hundreds of millions of miles away, heading straight for the demonic dimension. When they passed by a meteorite, they saw a kind-looking monk sitting cross-legged on the meteorite. He put his palms together and was silently chanting Buddhist scriptures. His whole body was emitting Buddha's light. Sensing the army of the demon eye, he opened his eyes slightly and made a Buddhist greeting. He said, very good, very good. I have been waiting for you for a long time." The demon eye glanced at the monk and said indifferently, "A Buddhist? How dare you block the way of the demon clan?" Tyrant put on a kind smile and said, "Amitabha, I hope that benefactors of the demon race can do a good deed and release that female benefactor. This poor monk has some fate with her. I hope that you can give this little monk some face." The demon eye sneered and gave a look to one of the demonic gods beside him. "Eat him!" Roar. The demonic god jumped down excitedly. He opened his big mouth and bit the monk. The monk still put his palms together and didn't show any signs of resistance. When the demonic god was 30 feet away from them, the demonic god's body suddenly started burning, and black flames rose. No matter how the demonic god struggled, the flames showed no signs of extinguishing until they were completely burned to ashes. The sudden scene shocked the many demonic gods, and they instinctively felt fear. The monk burned a demonic god to death without batting an eyelid? They were shocked by the terrible black flames. However, General Demon, I seemed to recall something at this moment. His whole body trembled, and he said in a trembling voice, "Undying demon flame. You are." The monk slowly put down his palms and put them behind his back. His temperament suddenly changed, and the warm smile on his face was like the smile of the god of death in the eyes of the demon eye. There are still people in the demonic realm who can recognize the undying demon flame. It seems that you haven't forgotten me. The demon eye trembled all over, and cold sweat flowed down his forehead. With a thud, he knelt on the ground and kowtowed. "Your subordinate, the demon eye, pays respect to the undying demon emperor." "The undying demon emperor?" Gu Taishu, Mother Dakini, and Luo Xue gasped. This old monk is the undying demon emperor? Shouldn't demon emperors be in the demonic realm? The monk smiled kindly. "You are not my subordinate, and I have another identity, the god of death." "What?" Mother Dakini and Gu Taishu were shocked. In the galaxy, the god of death was known as the second strongest expert, just below the demon emperor? Who in the universe didn't know about him? Who didn't know about him? Yes, I pay respect to the Lord God of Death. The demon eye's legs trembled. "Please forgive us for failing to recognize you, Lord God of Death. We didn't mean to offend you." Chapter 1507. "Ah, Lord Demon Emperor, please show mercy." The demon eye screamed and tried to escape. The death deity smiled mercifully and put his palms together. Amitabha. As soon as he said that, all the demon gods were ignited by the demon fire and turned into ashes in an instant. The demon eye, who had escaped to the end of the sky, failed to escape and was killed. Many demon gods had no ability to resist at all and were annihilated with a single thought from the undying demon emperor. Only Dakini, Gu Taishu, Luo Shui, and the two demons who had been captured were left. Looking at the ashes floating in the Milky Way, they shuddered and didn't even dare to breathe. The death deity turned around and looked at them with a faint smile. Ignoring everyone else, he fixed his eyes on Luo Shui and said, "Lady Donor, you are destined to meet me. Come with me." Luo Shui wanted to refuse, but under the gaze of the death deity, she couldn't speak or move. She drifted away with him involuntarily. Dakini and Gu Taishu didn't dare to stop him. He was the infamous death deity in the Milky Way. Moreover, his reputation was not as good as meeting him in person. His strength completely surpassed the rumors. Why is the death deity interested in that little b******? Dakini couldn't figure it out. Gu Taishu was also unwilling to accept it. He had spent so much effort to kidnap her, but the undead demon emperor appeared out of nowhere. Looking down at the two demons who had been captured, Gu Taishu said, "What should we do with them? The demon I came to capture them in person, which shows that they are not ordinary demons. If we take them back to the realm of demons, will it be considered a pledge of allegiance?" Dakini followed his gaze and looked at the two demons on the ground. One was a middle-aged man, and the other was a young woman. Their faces were similar, so they should be father and daughter. After thinking for a while, Dakini said, "This pledge of allegiance may not bring us a good end." "Why?" Gu Taishu's gaze shifted as he asked. Dakini stared at the ashes floating in the Milky Way and said, "Isn't it simple? What do you think the realm of demons will think of us if we witness the demon I being killed by the undead demon emperor while we are safe and sound?" Hearing this, Gu Taishu frowned slightly. "I'm afraid they will doubt our loyalty. In the worst-case scenario, they'll blame us for the death of the demonic eye." Mother Dakini nodded and said, "That's why it's best for us to pretend that we've never seen the demonic eye or those two before. With our current strength, it's not wise for us to get involved." Gu Taishu agreed wholeheartedly. "Indeed, we shouldn't stay here for long. Let's leave quickly." The two of them left the unconscious devil race and quietly escaped. Half a day later, Su Yu had finally arrived at the world of divine remains. Tens of millions of miles away, Su Yu's footsteps came to an abrupt halt, and he frowned slightly. Why is there the scent of chaos beasts? After pondering it for a moment, Su Yu said, "I'm afraid something has happened." Shua leaving Hanxian behind, Su Yu teleported near the aura of the chaos beast. From afar, he could see 9 chaos beasts surrounding Zhan Wushuang. Zhan Wushuang could only struggle bitterly. He could not break free at all. Xiao Qin scanned the surroundings and did not see Luo Shui. He could still sense the lingering aura of the demon race nearby. Has the demon race been here? Su Yu's heart sank. His bad premonition had come true. Staring at the 9 chaos beasts, Su Yu's eyes flashed coldly, and he swooped down. His appearance immediately attracted the attention of the chaos beasts. 2 of the chaos beasts that were wandering outside immediately roared and turned to bite Su Yu. Su Yu snorted coldly, and a black divine dragon appeared in his palm. "The law of death." Su Yu growled, and his palm pressed down across the air. Suddenly, several clear virtual shadows of the law chain appeared around Su Yu's palm. A dark palm print shuttled through the void and imprinted on the surface of a chaos beast's body. The chaos beast was originally invisible, and it was difficult for external forces to harm it. However, the dark palm print fell straight on its body, and the chaos beast was blown away. At the same time, its vitality was rapidly declining. The whole color quickly dimmed, and finally turned into a dead gray. Its vitality was extinguished. The chaos beast that could not be killed was easily killed. Another chaos beast was not afraid of death, and continued to bite while roaring. Su Yu's eyes flashed with cold light, and his left and right eyes burst with purple and wine-red divine light, condensing together to form a mixed beam of light. Around the beam of light, there was a rotating chain of the law. The law of time and space flow backward. The chaos beast sensed the danger and turned into a residual shadow, trying to dodge, but no matter what, the distance between it and the beam of light did not increase. It was as if it was locked by the law of space, and no matter how it moved, it could not escape. In the end, it was shot by the beam of light, wrapped and swallowed. When the beam of light dissipated, the chaos beast disappeared, including its breath, completely erased from the world. Zhan Wushuang's eyes showed a trace of surprise. He had fought for so long, but he had not been able to kill a chaos beast. Su Yu came and easily killed 2 in a row. I haven't seen him for only 2 months, and his strength has improved so much? What kind of great opportunity did he encounter? After killing 2 chaos beasts, the rest of the chaos beasts showed a little fear. After a moment of stalemate with Zhan Wushuang, they broke free from the suppression of the heaven and earth divine throne and fled to the sky. There, a huge formation appeared, and they were sent back to the demon world. Zhan Wushuang retracted the shadow and took a deep breath. What happened? Where is Shui? With a swoosh, Su Yu flew in front of him and stared at him. Hearing this, Zhan Wushuang was deeply ashamed. I'm sorry, I couldn't keep my promise. She was taken away by the demon race. Demon race? Tell me the whole story. Su Yu's heart sank. He knew what would happen to the creatures of Xing River if they fell into the hands of the demon world. After listening to Zhan Wushuang's story patiently, Su Yu was full of killing intent. Dakini Gu Taishu. A leopard can't change its spots. Even in that kind of situation, you still want to do evil. Zhan Wushuang's eyes were full of remorse. I was too soft-hearted. Otherwise, how could there be such twists and turns and attract the demon race? You wait for me for a few more months. I will kill my way into the demon world and take Miss Luo back. Zhan Wushuang clenched his fist. I will never break my promise. No need, Su Yu said lightly, his eyes fixed on the distance, not looking at him. I don't need you. I will save her myself. Hearing Su Yu's indifference, Zhan Wushuang clenched his fists, his heart suffering. As a born king, he never owed anyone a promise. Now, he failed to keep his promise to protect Luo Shui and let her be taken away by the demon race. When he finished speaking, Su Yu turned into a residual shadow and went straight in the direction of the demon eye. As soon as he left, Han Xian hurried after him. Seeing Zhan Wushuang, she was pleasantly surprised. She turned to look around but did not see Su Yu. She asked curiously, "Where is he? He took Luo Shui away so soon?" She was a little displeased. What was this? Zhan Wushuang saw her and was taken aback. Su Yu did not continue to kidnap you? Han Xian blinked. Continue? You didn't give Luo Shui to him? A bitter smile bloomed on his lips, and Zhan Wushuang shook his head deeply. Knowing the ins and outs of the matter, Han Xian was stunned and said anxiously, "Then he is going to kill his way into the demon world alone?" Zhan Wushuang said, "I'm afraid so." Looking at Han Xian with relief, Zhan Wushuang said, "Han Xian, you find a safe place to hide. I will go after him. The demon world is dangerous, and he can't barge into it alone." "Are you going too?" Han Xian asked in surprise. Zhan Wushuang said, "Yes, I don't owe people promises. I failed to protect Luo Shui, but he didn't hurt you. It is my duty to help him rescue Luo Shui." "I want to go too," Han Xian said. "If anything happens to Luo Shui, I will not be able to face Su Yu." "All right, but don't go too far away from me." Su Yu's eyes were filled with coldness as he flew away quickly. When he passed by a meteorite filled with ashes, he stopped and frowned slightly. There are so many ashes of demonic gods here. Did a battle take place here? While he was in a daze, he sensed 2 familiar auras. Glancing around, he found 2 corpses of demons floating in the Star River immediately. If the battle here hadn't scared away the wild beasts nearby, they would have been eaten by the wild beasts in a coma. Qian-jun, Sha-er? Su-yu was a little surprised. Then, he pulled them up from the air. After checking, he found that their 5 senses had been sealed, so they had fallen into a deep sleep. Wake up! Su-yu opened his mouth and spat out a divine energy to wake them up. Qian-jun opened his eyes slowly. When he sensed someone was close to him, he punched the man's chest subconsciously. However, his punch didn't cause any harm to the man. Instead, his palm was badly hurt by the counterforce. Who is it? Qian-jun shouted in a low voice as he glanced at the man's face. However, it seemed he had found something. His body became stiff as he looked at the man's face again. When he fixed his eyes on the man's face was very familiar to him. Qian-jun exclaimed in disbelief, Lord Demon King? Am I hallucinating? Or did the demons cast some secret technique on me? At this time, Shar also woke up. Looking at the handsome man with silver hair and the crown on his head, she was also confused. Then, she said in confusion, Weren't we captured? Am I hallucinating now? Qian-jun and Shar looked at each other in confusion. I sent a message to you and asked you to see me. Why are you sleeping here? Did something happen? Su-yu asked calmly. Hearing that, Qian-jun and Shar stood up hurriedly and bowed in surprise. Lord Demon King, it's really you. Su-yu sent a message to Qian-jun. Only he and his daughter knew what had happened. It was impossible for the demons to confuse them. Answer my question. Su-yu patted their shoulders. His powerful divine strength helped them get rid of their weakness and fatigue. Feeling the warmth, Qian-jun said gratefully, Thank you, Lord. When we received your message, we tried our best to sneak out of the realm of demons and was ready to hand over the information we had collected over the years to you. However, after we left, our base camp in the realm of demons was uprooted by Princess Yunxia. The news of our escape was also exposed. Then, we were hunted down by the Holy Magic Hall. We tried our best to escape. However, we were only at the level of prospective deities. Eventually, the demon gods of the Holy Magic Hall caught up with us. They sealed our 5 senses. When we woke up again, we saw Lord. Did you save us? Su-yu sighed silently. In this case, they didn't know what had happened here. Whether Luo Shui was taken back to the realm of demons by the remaining demons or by the other side of the battle here was totally unknown. Anyway, Luo Shui didn't die here. Slightly relieved, Su-yu said, You have worked hard. From now on, you will follow me. You don't have to go back to the realm of demons. Hearing that, Qian-jun said seriously, I'm afraid we can't go back. Lord, in addition to bringing back all kinds of information about the realm of demons collected over the past 8 years, when we sneaked out of the realm of demons, we also learned a shocking secret from a high-level demon. It was because of this secret that a top demon god like the demonic eye led a team to kill us. Oh? A shocking secret? Tell me, Su-yu said. Chapter 1508. Qian-jun said, The giant of the bitter sea has come ashore. The giant of the bitter sea. Su-yu took a deep breath. The most lethal threat in the Star River. An ancient demon emperor who would devour all the creatures in the Star River to become the overlord of the Star River. However, Su-yu frowned a bit. It's not a secret that the giant of the bitter sea has come ashore. Why did the demonic eye, one of the 10 demonic gods of the Holy Magic Hall, come here to kill him? Is there something special about this time? Qian-jun nodded. You are right. The giant of the bitter sea has come ashore this time. As soon as he came ashore, he devoured the entire Jingyu realm. All the creatures in the 7 great demonic realms became the food of the giant of the bitter sea. Su-yu's pupils constricted. It has begun, devouring all the creatures in the Star River, starting from the ordinary creatures in the demon realm. Qian-jun said, This incident has caused great panic. After the creatures of the other 6 realms got the news, they fled in panic and wanted to escape from the demonic realm. However, the Holy Magic Hall guarded the only gap in the demonic realm personally. Luckily, we left in advance. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to leave the demon realm. Suyu asked thoughtfully, "Can the holy magic hall stop all the creatures in the demon realm?" Qian Jun said, "You will know after reading these messages." Then, he took out a space ring. Suyu glanced at it and found all the jade slips were neatly placed in the space ring, which recorded all kinds of messages. Row 130,403, from left to right, the 40,000,001 contains the messages of the demonic gods in the demon realm. Qian Jun said as he held a catalogue in his hand. Suyu nodded and entered the space ring with his soul to read the documents. 1 hour later, Suyu was still reading the documents. Sha-Er murmured, "Father, why hasn't Lord finished reading the documents?" Qian Jun made a gesture to keep quiet and said secretly, "The contents of one document are equivalent to 2 hours of reading for ordinary people. It's still early. Be patient and don't talk anymore." At that moment, Suyu blinked his eyes and came back to his senses. He said, "So, in the 8 years after I left, all the wandering demon gods in the demonic dimension disappeared one after another?" Sha-Er blinked her eyes and said secretly, "Didn't you say it would take 2 hours?" Qian Jun stared at her and said, "Milord is very talented. What's there to be surprised about?" When Qian Jun was about to answer, Suyu continued, "Besides, considering the disappearance of the descendants of the demonic god, it doesn't seem like they are hiding from the world. They must have been abducted by a powerful force without being noticed." Qian Jun was shocked. The information about the descendants of the missing demonic god was divided into 80 other books. Did Suyu read them too? Exactly. Although surprised, Qian Jun said, "Their disappearance caused a lot of panic in the realm of devils. No one knew where they went. They finally showed up when a large number of creatures in the realm of devils rushed to the exit. They all joined the holy magic hall." Suyu's eyes lit up. To be precise, he was mutated by Princess Yunxia's power of Azura. Just like the red-eyed mutated creatures in the Azura world, they had lost their rationality, became irritable, and their strength increased. At the same time, they were very obedient to control. "Princess Yunxia, who exactly are you?" Suyu thought to himself. Qian Jun said, "Because of their joining, the number of deities in the Holy Magic Hall has skyrocketed from the original 200 to more than 300 demonic gods. More than that, the demonic gods in the Holy Magic Hall seem to have been strengthened in batches. They are more powerful than before and have more strange abilities that are impossible to guard against. The demonic eyes that came to capture us were not strengthened yet. Even so, they were incredibly powerful," Qian Jun said with lingering fear. Suyu was sure that the mutation caused by the power of Azura must be caused by the power of Azura. In addition, there is more important news. The realm of devils has been preparing for war for the past 8 years. Recently, they have mobilized the armies of all the realms to launch an action called Nirvana against all the creatures in the Star River. It is a great momentum, unprecedented in the realm of devils. This action is very fierce, and the creatures in the Star River are in great danger," Qian Jun said seriously. He thought Suyu would be very nervous after hearing this. However, Suyu was very calm. "My lord, the realm of devils has the intention to destroy the Star River. Please make a plan as soon as possible." Qian Jun couldn't help but be anxious. Suyu said calmly, "I also have the ambition to destroy the realm of devils. We have the same idea." Qian Jun and Sha-Er were dumbfounded. They almost thought they had heard it wrong. Destroy the realm of devils? Is the realm of devils going to destroy you? Is my lord crazy? The father and the daughter asked at the same time as they looked at each other. Rumble, all of a sudden, the heaven and earth were deafening as if thousands of thunderbolts were interweaving in the sky. They saw a huge snow-white disk that blotted out the sun and the sky, flickering like a white light as it floated above their heads. Looking at the boundless giant, the father and daughter sucked in a breath of cold air. What is this thing? Is it the arrival of all the God Realm empires? But how could it be so fast? Swish, when they were shocked speechless, many enormous battleships flew down from the disk. They were the most advanced giant Star River battleships of the God Realm empires. Each of the battleships was surrounded by hundreds of divine boats. The battleships were full of the auras of powerful people. Many of them were so powerful that the father and the daughter were shocked. Swish, Yongye Chushue Yongye Wuheng, by Wanqing, and the first prince landed. 4 powerful figures at level 3 of the realm of gods shocked the father and the daughter to the ground. Yongye Chushue frowned. 2 little demons? Brother Su, where did you find these small fries? Qian Jun and his daughter were shocked again. How could such powerful beings call Su Yu brother? Wait, why is the first prince here? And he seems to regard Su Yu as his leader? Su Yu said, "They are my people." Oh, Yongye Chushue said casually. Then, she looked around and asked, "Where is Sister Xue?" Su Yu was silent for a while. She was captured by the demons. Hearing that, the all-access merchant god was surprised. How could the demons appear here? Su Yu narrated the entire sequence of events, causing the deities to be unable to restrain their anger and resentment. The Xing deity said angrily, "So, we came here for nothing?" Su Yu said, "Not for nothing. Qian Jun, tell them about the current situation of the realm of devils." When they learned that the giant of the bitter sea had devoured the creatures of the realm of devils, they were quite happy at first. However, when they learned that the realm of devils was preparing for war, they all changed their expressions. The all-access merchant god's face was slightly pale, and his breathing became rapid. He clenched his fists and said, "This day has finally come. I have been waiting for this day for a long time." The Xing deity said, "Emperor Yu, please give the order. We will go back immediately, strengthen our defense, and fight against the demons to the end. We will never compromise." The deities looked determined. "Emperor Yu, please give the order. We will never bow to the demons. If they want to kill us, they must pay the price. Yes. Whether we surrender or not, we can't escape death. What are we waiting for? Of course, we must resist to the end." When they heard that the demons had sent troops, they were not afraid. Instead, they were inspired with infinite courage. They had lived in fear for a long time, but at this moment, they gathered an unprecedented murderous aura. However, Su Yu was silent. He looked around at them for a long time and said slowly, "I will not allow you to resist." What? The indignant deities seemed to have been splashed with a basin of cold water. Each of them stared at Su Yu incredulously, as if doubting whether the words just said were said by Su Yu. The demons were coming, but they were not allowed to resist? Did they want to surrender to the demons? Puzzlement, confusion, and surprise emerged in the hearts of everyone. Until Su Yu said slowly, "Do you really think that I have mobilized all the strong men of the God Realm Empire just to rescue a hostage?" Hearing this, many gods' eyes gleamed with excitement. Those who were a little more sensitive had doubts. Was it really necessary to mobilize so many people just to rescue a hostage? What's more, they had come out in full force, but there was no strong man in the God Realm Empire. Was Emperor Yu not afraid that something would happen? Did he want to? Some wise people understood Su Yu's intentions, and their eyes were filled with horror. They could hardly believe their own guesses. "I will not allow you to resist, only you are allowed to attack. Attack into the demon world, slaughter the holy magic hall, kill the giant of the bitter sea, and get rid of the scourge once and for all." Su Yu's voice was sonorous and powerful, shocking the universe. His words rushed into everyone's heart and shook their souls. Someone couldn't help but say, but we are no match for the demons." Su Yu's eyes were sharp and deep, and he asked, "Since we are no match for them, can we survive by resisting?" The person who asked the question couldn't help but be stunned. Yes, they were all going to die. Why didn't they choose to take the initiative to attack? Under the deterrence of the demons for a long time, they almost forgot that they still had the option of attacking, and subconsciously just wanted to resist. The best defense is offense. You have the heart to die, so why wait for the enemy to kill you instead of rushing into the enemy and dying? Suyu said in a powerful voice, and the majestic voice woke everyone up from their dreams. Many people's eyes were getting brighter and brighter. Kill into the demon world. The all-access merchant god couldn't suppress his excitement. He never dreamed of killing into the demon world, and Suyu's words woke him up. Today was different from the past, and the strength of the God Realm Empire was not what it used to be. Why should they fear the demons? It was the demons, and they should be afraid of them. It was like a stone falling into a calm lake, splashing thousands of ripples. Kill into the demon world. Slaughter the holy magic hall. I swear to follow Emperor Yu to the death. Long live Emperor Yu. Waves of shouts, each louder than the last, surged in all directions of the galaxy like a tsunami, surging into the endless galaxy. The demon world. The majestic and glorious demon imperial capital was shrouded in blood, adding to the gloom. It was caused by countless drops of blood that did not fall in time, and the amount of blood could be imagined. Looking down from the sky, there were endless corpses outside the city, stretching tens of millions of miles of mountains and rivers. The former demon imperial capital was surrounded by corpses. Chapter 1509. Swoosh. A figure with a strong aura flew in front of her. He was covered in blood and his eyes were red. He knelt on one knee and said respectfully, "Greetings, Your Highness." Princess Yunxia retracted her gaze and said indifferently, "How is the situation?" "Your Highness, not a single creature has escaped from the realm of demons. It will only take 2 days for the giant of the bitter sea to come and devour them all." Princess Yunxia frowned slightly. "Who cares about the life and death of the ants in the realm of demons? I am asking, how are the preparations for the baptism?" The figure's expression turned serious, and he immediately said, reporting to the princess, "Everything has been done according to your instructions. Apart from the demonic eye, the last batch of demonic gods of the Holy Magic Hall have also been baptized by the heavenly liquid. They only need to undergo a blood sacrifice to undergo a transformation." Princess Yunxia nodded with satisfaction and said coldly, "Is it a sacrifice?" A cold and cruel smile bloomed at the corner of her mouth. "A few months ago, didn't we capture a lot of demons who served Suyu? We will use them as sacrifices for this new batch of demons." Hearing this, the figure also grinned and his smile was cold. "Your Highness is wise. The so-called sacrifice was to let them eat their own kind alive. The same kind here referred to the creatures who had experienced the baptism of the heavenly liquid. They would transform the creatures who served Suyu and then use them as sacrifices." Princess Yunxia sneered coldly. "Suyu, your good days are coming to an end. How is the preparation of the first demon army?" The figure said, "They have been stationed outside the realm of demons, led by General Broken Bones, with 100,000 troops and 100 demon ships. Within a month, they can arrive at the realm of gods and completely conquer it in 2 months. In this regard, Princess Yunxia shook her head indifferently. "Don't be too confident. After all, the Xing River is part of the ancient god realm. No one knows whether the overlord of the Xing River still exists." The figure said flatteringly, "Your Highness, you worry too much. If there is such a powerful existence, how can they sit back and watch the situation of the Xing River today? I think with the Dakini and the many creatures she cultivated, we should be able to destroy the realm of gods in a short time." With that, the figure bowed and said, "If Your Highness does not trust General Broken Bones, I am willing to personally lead the troops to conquer the realm of gods and hand it over to Your Highness." Princess Yunxia looked at him indifferently and said faintly, "Li Fei, you and I have been friends for many years. Why do you need to call yourself a subordinate?" The figure was silent for a moment, then gradually straightened his back, revealing a face that was not of the demon race. At first glance, it looked like a human, but its eyes were blood-red, very similar to the creatures of the Azura world. I was ordered to assist you, so why can't I call myself your subordinate? Li Fei smiled faintly and continued the previous topic. The first demon army's individual strength is extremely strong, and they are also equipped with Azura weapons from the Azura world. Even without the other demon armies mobilizing, they can still destroy the Divine Realm Empire. Princess Consort can rest assured that there won't be any mistake. While they were talking, in the galaxy, outside the Devil Realm, a total of 100 huge black devil ships were floating near the Devil Realm. Demon gods with blood-red eyes could be vaguely seen amidst the surging demon chi. In the center of the 100 demonic warships, there was a warship that was twice the size of an ordinary demonic warship. It had a clear flag with the symbol of the Devil World, indicating the status of the main warship. In the cabin of the main warship, a burly demon god with cold blood-red eyes stood with his hands behind his back. In front of him was a round table-sized demon artifact. There were thousands of light spots scattered on it, densely covering the entire round disk. Every round disk was a team of Devil World scouts, responsible for patrolling the surroundings of the Devil Realm and keeping an eye out for any suspicious enemies. At this moment, at the outermost part of the round disk, a light spot extinguished without warning, becoming extremely dim. Admiral Broken Bones, look, there's something wrong with one of the scouts. There were a few gods near the round disk demon chi, responsible for inspecting the round disk. When they discovered the abnormality, they immediately reported. The demon god with deep blood-red eyes and standing with his hands behind his back was one of the 10 great generals of the Holy Magic Hall, Admiral Broken Bones. Admiral Broken Bones stared at the extinguished light spot, his expression as cold as before. He said, "Immediately send a message to that patrol team, ask if their demon artifact has malfunctioned." Yes. The 4 demon gods immediately sent a message to him. However, the message was like a rock in the ocean, and there was no reply for a long time. "Admiral, they might not have recovered in time." The 4 demon gods analyzed. Admiral Broken Bones stared at the round disk and said indifferently, "They can't recover." The 4 demon gods followed Admiral Broken Bones' gaze, and their pupils constricted. Another patrol team's display has dimmed. Just as they were in shock, another light spot suddenly dimmed and extinguished. In less than 10 breaths' time, 2 patrol teams met with the same situation. This was definitely not a demon artifact being damaged. The only explanation was that they had met with mishaps. 3 teams met with mishaps in a row. Could it be the appearance of a divine-level wild beast? The 4 demon gods analyzed. Admiral Broken Bones ordered indifferently, "Inform the nearest patrol team to rush over, find out the information, and send it back as soon as possible." The 4 demon gods immediately did as instructed. The round disk clearly showed more than 20 light spots moving rapidly towards the nearest dimmed light spot. From the round disk, it looked like a cloud of light spots surging over, covering the sky and covering the earth. This wild beast should be a speed type. It destroyed 3 patrol teams in a short span of 20 breaths. "That's impressive," a demon god said with a composed expression. Another demon god agreed. "Yes, in recent years, the wild beasts have become much more active. For some reason, divine-level wild beasts often appear. This one must have accidentally wandered over. I wonder what breed it is. Even if the patrol teams that rushed over are no match for it, they should be able to scare it off." He was still speaking, but the scene reflected in his eyes left the demon god stunned. The surrounding cloud of light spots had suffered some unknown attack, and were completely annihilated. Admiral Broken Bones could not help but be moved. He immediately ordered the divine-level patrol team to rush over and investigate this matter. Beep beep, the round disk let out a crisp sound. An extremely bright light spot crossed half the round disk and headed straight for the spot where the cloud had been annihilated. The divine-level patrol team was the highest team that commanded the patrol teams. They were there to deal with sudden incidents like this. There were a total of 8 demon gods in the team. No matter what divine-level wild beast they encountered, they could retreat safely. Poof, however, when the divine-level patrol team was halfway there, they were suddenly annihilated. They quickly dimmed and finally disappeared from the round disc. The demon gods in the cabin stared at the vanishing light spot in shock and bewilderment. The divine-level patrol team was annihilated. A total of 8 demon gods. The Admiral of Broken Bones was surprised and asked, "Did they send any news back?" The 4 demon gods checked the nearby communication magic tools, but all of them were silent. There was no movement. Looking at this scene, General Broken Bones sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "Pass down the order, Level 3 alert. Dispatch 3 warship. We must eliminate the invading wild beast." Woo woo woo. A loud and deep horn sounded in the demon army. The demon gods who were resting or laughing on the warships were all stunned. Seeing the 3 warships speeding away, the demon gods looked at each other. That's strange. Level 3 alert. The last time was 8 years ago when the princes and princesses caused trouble, right? Is the world going to be in chaos again? But to cause trouble in the demon world at this time is like sending sheep into a tiger's mouth. Haha. However, not long after, the demon army's expressions turned serious. They no longer wanted to play around. This was because the second sound of the horn echoed in the dark starry sky not long after the first sound. In the main ship's cabin, the 4 demon gods looked serious and exclaimed, "How is this possible? Could it be a divine-level wild beast horde?" On the round disk, 3 extremely bright light spots were rapidly dimming. There was still no response from the communication devices in the cabin. What did this mean? It meant that the 3 warships were annihilated before they could even send a message. Those were 3 warships. Each ship had a lieutenant general demonic god, whose cultivation was at least at level 4. At the same time, there were also 3 level 5 demonic gods and 5 level 6 demonic gods. They were so powerful that they could threaten the God Realm Empire. However, they were annihilated without a sound. They did not even have a chance to send a message. What had happened to them? The Admiral of Broken Bones' pupils constricted, and his face finally revealed a look of shock. He said sternly, "Level 2 alert. Mobilize 20 warships and prepare to defend against the enemy." Level 2 alert. It was a higher level of security than when the Demon King and the Demoness had caused trouble. On the round disk, the bright light spots of the 20 warships lit up almost half of the round disk. They formed a cloud and rushed to the place where the 3 warships had disappeared. However, at this moment, something strange happened. On the round disk, the light spots of the patrol teams were suddenly annihilated on a large scale. From the east to the demon world, all the light spots of the patrol teams were annihilated, as if they had suffered a terrifying destructive attack. Not a single one was left alive. At a glance, there was a long empty space in the sky above the round disk, leading to where they were. This scene had already shocked them to the point that they were speechless. The next scene caused them to feel terror from the depths of their souls. The dazzling light spots of the 20 warships were also annihilated rapidly. After a few breaths, there was dead silence. Together with the patrol teams, they were annihilated instantly. Enemy attack. It's an enemy attack. Admiral Broken Bones felt a chill down his spine. After coming to his senses, he shouted, "Level 1 alert! Level 1 alert! Quickly send a message to the demon world. Send a message to the princess. It's an enemy army." At this moment, how could they not understand that it wasn't a wild beast attacking them, it was a terrifyingly powerful enemy army. That power that instantly annihilated a large number of patrol teams and 20 warships. There was only one faction in the entire galaxy. The God Realm Empire. Woo 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 woo. The urgent sound of the horns shook every corner of the dark galaxy. The observing demon army was like ants on a frying pan. The docked warships all started to move. Under the command of the main ship, they crisscrossed and formed a defensive formation. The demons on the warships all seemed to wake up from a dream. They flew to the deck of the warships in panic to prepare for battle. This was a scene they never dreamed of. They didn't attack the beings in the galaxy, but they dared to attack first. In the tens of millions of years of history of the God realm, this was definitely unprecedented. The entire demon army was in chaos, their defensive formation was in disarray. After a while, they barely managed to calm down. The remaining 77 warships arranged themselves in a net shape, forming a shield in front of the demon world. At this moment, the galaxy was deathly silent. All the demon gods stared at the dark galaxy in front of them, not daring to blink. An inexplicable sense of fear swept through their hearts. They had always only attacked, only slaughtered, only stepped on the corpses of others with sinister smiles. They had never defended as if they were facing a great enemy. Time passed bit by bit. The enemy army was nowhere to be seen. Chapter 15:10. Even Admiral Broken Bone and the others in the main ship felt tormented, a torment they had never experienced before. Click, click, a soft mechanical sound came from the depths of the dark galaxy. When the sound fell into the ears of the demon gods, they could not help but feel their hearts tighten and their breathing quicken. The sound continued, getting clearer and closer. It was like a terrifying bloodthirsty wild beast was slowly walking out of the darkness. Ah! I can't take it any more. A demon god could not bear the pressure and rushed out with bloodshot eyes. I'll kill you! He turned into a blur and charged into the dark galaxy, fighting to the death with the being that was slowly closing in. However, he was like a speck of dust that fell into the endless dark abyss. He disappeared without a sound, not even a ripple. The cracking sounds were not obstructed in the slightest. Seeing this scene, the many demon gods were terrified. What exactly were they facing? This kind of fear was only felt by the ant-like creatures they had slaughtered. Inside the main ship, Admiral Broken Bone's forehead was dripping with sweat. His palms were wet, and his eyeballs were bulging and bloodshot because he stared at the disk. They could hear each other's heartbeats in the cabin. Click! At this moment, the inexplicable sound suddenly became clear. It's here. In the pupils of all the demons, an unbelievable scene was reflected in their eyes. A giant battleship the size of several cavern worlds with a metallic luster slowly sailed toward them. The battleship's design was extremely simple and exaggerated, especially the 100 huge cannons hanging below it. Just one of the cannons was tens of thousands of feet in diameter. The metal on the battleship was extremely complicated. It was made of unknown and mysterious metal materials that were connected in a very strange way. In terms of size, this battleship was hundreds of times larger than all of them combined. In front of it, they were like 100 specks of dust. The weaved defensive net was like a joke in front of it. It was like a spider web trying to intercept a sturdy black bull. The extreme shock shocked them, and they did not dare to move. The thing that attacked them was actually such a terrifying thing? In the cabin of the main ship, Admiral Broken Bone gasped. What is this thing? Bang! What answered him was a beam of energy filled with the power of extreme destruction. The 100 cannons were filled with incomparably berserk power at the same time and shot out in unison. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom 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 boom. All that was left in the dark Milky Way were the heaven-shaking rumbles and the light pillars that illuminated the Milky Way. The entire galaxy was caught in the flickering brilliance. When the pillar of light finished pouring down, the galaxy returned to silence. However, all that was left in the sky were the wreckage of the battleships that were almost smashed to pieces, as well as countless devils that had been smashed to pieces. There were no more living beings. Under the superior extermination cannon's focus, nothing was left of the flagship. General Broken Bone, who was inside, naturally didn't even have a corpse left. Schwar at this time, dozens of small boats flew out from the battleship. They were all soldiers of the God Realm Empire, and they quickly cleaned up the battlefield. Sigh. If it's too clean, it'll be hard to find any valuable resources. The soldier cleaning had a bitter smile on his face. TSK. Still want to pick up resources? It's hard for me to even pick up a pile of sh*t and bring it back. The destruction is too King thorough. In the sacred sky worship, many deities were dumbfounded, staring at the scene in front of them in disbelief. When they were preparing for the war, they were prepared to fight to the death. However, the scene in front of them had subverted their understanding. The incomparably powerful demon army, the demon race that had wreaked havoc in the Milky Way for millions of years, the demon army that could frighten all the deities with its prestige, was annihilated in an instant. In the central control room, Suyu leaned against the throne and looked at the main screen calmly. The screen showed all the scenes of the battle outside. His face was calm and composed, without the slightest hint of surprise. He said, "Everyone, the demon realm is right in front of us." The deities looked past the wreckage and landed on the huge cavern world that was shaped like a woman's womb. All of them were shocked. So, that is the demon realm. Many of the deities had only heard of it, but they had never seen the real demon realm. This was the first time they had seen it. What was even more unexpected was that they were here to attack the demon realm. Even the deities of the Great Western Alliance had never thought that there would be a day when they would counterattack the demon realm. The entrance to the demon realm was in the center of the womb. There was a huge whirlpool that was emitting black demonic energy. Inside was the demon realm, which had threatened the creatures of the Milky Way for millions of years. All the deities suppressed their fear and excitement and stared at the entrance. At this time, they heard Suyu's indifferent voice. "Everyone, get ready to fight to the death." It was a vow before the war, which should have made their blood boil and their fighting spirits rise. However, many people couldn't help but smile bitterly when they heard it. With such a sacred sky worship, was it necessary for them to fight to the death? They probably wouldn't even have many opportunities to show their faces. Yes, sir. However, they were still excited, and they couldn't describe their excitement in words. With a click, the huge sacred sky warship sailed into the whirlpool. From afar, it looked like a sharp arrow that had been inserted into a womb. For the first time, the creatures of the Milky Way were going to attack the demon realm. Swish! At this moment, a small boat arrived slowly. One of them had only half of his soul left, and the other had lost his cultivation. They were the Dakini and Gu Taishu. Although they were one step ahead, they were far slower than the sacred sky warship and fell behind. Looking at the wreckage of the Milky Way, the two were stunned. Inside the demon realm, the conversation between Princess Yunxia and Li Fei came to an end. Princess Yunxia said, "No need to say more. The first demon army has accumulated more than half of the forces of the demon realm. We must not act rashly." Li Fei compromised and said, "Well, I will listen to your arrangements, as long as the giant of the bitter sea can devour all the creatures of the Milky Way." At this moment, the jade pendant on Princess Yunxia's waist suddenly made a rapid sound. "What?" Princess Yunxia frowned, took off the jade pendant, and crushed it on the spot. From the jade pendant came a hurried voice. "Reporting to the princess, the first demon army has been attacked, and the first level of alert has been activated." Li Fei was slightly surprised. The first level of alert? This is the alert level that the entire demon realm will only be under threat. The entire demon realm only activated it tens of millions of years ago when the giant of the bitter sea was penetrated by a mysterious force. Could it be that the General Broken Bone made a mistake and sent the wrong alert level? Li Fei was a little skeptical. Princess Yunxia's expression was already solemn. She shook her head and said, "The General Broken Bone is the leader of the Holy Magic Hall, second only to the demonic god of six paths. He is very strong and has a lot of experience in leading troops. The demonic god of six paths also praised him many times and intended to train him to be the successor of the commander. It is impossible for him to make such a low-level mistake." As she said, Princess Yunxia took out another messaging jade pendant and filled in the message. General Broken Bone, what is the current situation? What kind of enemy is attacking? However, the message was like a stone in the sea. Princess Yunxia frowned slightly. Strange, does the enemy have the means to block the transmission of messages? After a moment of hesitation, Princess Yunxia made a prompt decision and said, Li Fei, immediately dispatch the God-level patrol team out to investigate. Be sure to grasp the details of the battle outside. At the same time, mobilize the second demon army in my name and prepare to go out to assist the first demon army. Li Fei nodded. Okay. Watching Li Fei leave, Princess Yunxia couldn't help but touch her chest. Her eyebrows arched. Why do I have a feeling of uneasiness? Her beautiful eyes flickered slightly. Princess Yunxia disappeared from the palace without a trace. After Li Fei dispatched a few God-level patrol teams, he immediately went to mobilize the second demon army of the Holy Magic Hall. But at this moment, there was a sudden flash of lightning and thunder in the sky above the imperial city. A huge vortex opened silently. Li Fei was shocked. How is it possible that the first demon army was defeated so quickly and retreated back to the demonic world? However, Li Fei soon realized that something was wrong. No. Why is the vortex still expanding? Even if all the battleships retreated together, it wouldn't cause such a huge vortex. Whoosh! While he was in shock, a tearing sound suddenly broke out between heaven and earth. The vortex seemed to be unable to bear the pressure and was torn open on the spot, revealing a large space crack. At the same time, a huge battleship tore the vortex and forced its way in. Its size was unbelievably huge. The second demon army of the Holy Magic Hall, which was attacking the creatures of the demonic world with all its strength, was shocked. The size of the battleship was comparable to the sealed boundary of an entire prince. Li Fei's pupils shrank and he lost his voice in shock. How is it possible? The weapon of the ancient civilization, the sacred sky warship. Impossible, why would it appear in the god realm of the galaxy? Deep fear appeared in his eyes, but he was still calm enough to issue a command. He let out a whistle that spread throughout the imperial city. The princess has ordered that the second demon army will change the priority target of the enemy invasion. Attack immediately. The second demon army quickly gave up on blocking the ordinary creatures and changed their target to the sacred sky warship. Tens of thousands of prospective deities and hundreds of demon gods joined the siege. At this moment, a surprised voice came from the sacred sky warship. There are still a batch of demon gods in the Holy Magic Hall? Fine, let's wipe them out together. Boom, boom. Infinite beams of light from the superior extermination cannon crisscrossed and swept across the world. Under the light beams, no matter how strong the deities were, they were all turned into dust. The dust drifted down from the sky, turning the sky that was filled with bloody light gray. In the blink of an eye, the world was silent. Many creatures of the demonic world stared at the scene in front of them in disbelief. The second demon army of the demonic world was gone just like that? From the sacred sky warship, the young and indifferent voice came again. Princess Yunxia, how are you? Boom! With a roar, a beam of light penetrated the depths of the imperial palace and blasted out a huge pit. In the deep pit, under the protection of a layer of bloody light, several halls that were rolling with extreme demonic chi could be vaguely seen. That was the most mysterious existence of the demonic world, the Holy Magic Hall. In the demonic chi, a graceful woman with a phoenix crown on her head stood with her head raised. Her phoenix eyes were filled with deep shock, and her tone was indescribably calm. She said word by word, "You are actually not dead." Chapter 15:11. Wow. A beam of light was cast from the bottom of the sacred sky warship. A silver-haired youth with a crown on his head stood with his hands behind his back, looking down. Sorry to disappoint you. Looking past him, Su Yu looked directly at the Holy Magic Hall under the protection of the blood curtain. He could vaguely perceive 8 extremely powerful breaths, all of which were at level 3 and much more dangerous than general white bones. They were similar to the 5 mutated creatures in the Shura world, and their strength was comparable to the Blood Demon. If nothing else, they were the only 8 of the 10 great generals of the Holy Magic Hall. "Where is the demonic eye?" Suyu asked lightly. Princess Yunxia's eyes flashed and she asked, "Are you looking for someone?" Suyu nodded. "Yes." She smiled sarcastically. "Coming to the demon dimension to look for someone, Suyu, you are really a pioneer." However, Suyu said, "Well, looking for someone is the main thing, and I'm destroying the demon dimension along the way." Along the way. Not only were the demon dimension creatures stunned, but many of the Xing River creatures in the Sacred Sky warship were also stunned. Destroying the demon dimension was just along the way, so for this young great emperor, what kind of soul-stirring thing was considered as doing his best? "I haven't seen you for 8 years, and not only did you get the weapons of the ancient civilization, but you also got an arrogant attitude. 8 years ago you were just an ant that was being hunted." Princess Yunxia looked at Suyu coldly and sneered. Suyu said slowly, "You mean, 8 years ago, you used the power of the demon dimension to hunt him down, but still couldn't kill a small mortal fairy, and still let him leave without any resistance? All I saw was the incompetence of the demon dimension. I didn't expect that after 8 years you are not ashamed but proud of it. It seems that these years you are not as good as you used to be." Hearing this, Princess Yunxia's eyebrows bent, and her face darkened. "Don't waste your breath. Do you think you have the capital to destroy the demon dimension with the Sacred Sky warship? I won't let you go back." Princess Yunxia took out a blood-red scepter and gently waved it in the air. Xing! 8 pairs of blood-red eyes suddenly opened, bursting with extremely fierce and bloodthirsty light. 8 powerful breaths reopened the blood curtain and headed straight for the Sacred Sky warship. "Superior extermination cannon, fire!" Suyu made a prompt decision. Rumble. The 100 superior extermination cannons were quickly charged up and shot out hundreds of destructive light pillars, enveloping the blood screen that was hidden deep underground. The dazzling radiance made living beings unable to look directly at it, and the destructive shock waves forced them to retreat again and again. The shocking momentum seemed like it was going to destroy the demon world and completely destroy it. Many living beings in the devil world were horrified by the overwhelming power. Although the power of the 100 superior extermination cannons had already been demonstrated when the second devil army was destroyed, they were still shocked when they saw it again. When the smoke and dust dispersed, an unexpected scene appeared. The blood veil shattered, and the holy magic hall was destroyed, reduced to ruins. However, there were 8 rays of evil purple light, like 8 purple suns, shining brightly and majestically. In the middle of the 8 purple suns was Princess Yunxia. She was spotless and unaffected by the destruction just now. Hiss! He actually blocked that destructive attack? Some Devil Realm beings were extremely shocked. What is that purple light? Wait, look, they all have a pair of purple wings on their backs. Some demons who had cultivated the eye sorcery suddenly discovered something strange. Suyu also discovered the existence of the purple wings. He was even more clear that they were not really purple. Instead, they appeared purple because the color of blood was too intense. To be precise, they were blood-colored wings. Wings condensed from the power of Azura. Without a doubt, that was their talent after mutation, and it was their second talent. Among them, there was a second level of mutation. The 8 demon generals used the power of Azura and forcibly blocked the attack of hundreds of superior extermination cannons. Under normal circumstances, 1 superior extermination cannon could destroy a general. Now, the 8 of them joined forces and resisted hundreds of superior extermination cannons. After the mutation, it was imaginable how much their strength had skyrocketed. Princess Yunxia was deep within the protection of the 8 purple suns, and her lips curled up into a cold smile. You didn't expect this, did you? The two great demon armies are only used to harvest ant. The trump card of the demon world has always been the 10 great generals of the Holy Magic Hall, and they are all great generals after mutation. What can your sacred sky worship do to me? As the fierce words fell, the 8 purple suns wrapped around Princess Yunxia and rushed out of the ground, heading straight for the sacred sky worship. The 8 extremely powerful power of Azura carried the momentum of destruction. Su Yu's face was calm as he said, "Fight!" Swish, swish, swish. The Yongye siblings, by Wanqing and the eldest prince, the 4 level 3 strong men with unparalleled strength, rushed head-on into the 8 purple suns, disintegrating and scattering their peerless offensive. 4 of you, kill them, especially the eldest prince, he must be eaten. The rest of you, follow me to capture Su Yu. Princess Yunxia's cold eyes were fixed on Su Yu, never moving away. The 4 demon generals flew out one after another, each killing 1 person. However, as soon as they fought, they were shocked to realize that the opponent's strength was ridiculously strong. Except for the eldest prince, who was the number 1 genius in the demon world back then, the other 3 were stronger than him. In particular, the 3 of them were proficient in strange dragon magic, and their power was extraordinary. For a moment, they could not do anything to them, but were at a disadvantage. Yongye Chushue performed all kinds of dragon magic, suppressing General Tunri to the point where he could only resist. Seeing the opportunity, Yongye Chushue blinked her crystal eyes, and a shadow of the Dragon Emperor suddenly appeared behind her. Dragon Emperor, heavenly voice! The ancient shadow let out a silent dragon cry, and the shadows of the Great Path rules descended, suddenly binding the opponent. Then, the chains tightened, trying to strangle him. Feeling the crisis of death, General Tunri's face changed dramatically, and he no longer held back. The purple wings behind him suddenly flashed, and a strong power of Azura erupted from his body. Holy Demon Vajra! The surface of his body was quickly covered with a layer of blood-red power of Azura, fusing into his flesh and bones. His body expanded rapidly and became more solid, like a hard rock. Not only did the tightened chain of rules not continue to tighten, but it was constantly shaken off by his expanding body. Ha! General Tunri growled, and his body shook violently, shaking off the chain of rules. At the same time, he turned into a stream of light, and terrible power of Azura gushed out of his body, striking Yongye Chushue. Yongye Chushue was caught off guard. She only had time to put up a simple defense, and she was hit. The powerful power poured into her body, destroying her internal organs. Fortunately, she had the protection of the epoch-making dragon blood, so she recovered quickly. Even so, she had suffered serious injuries. Wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth, Yongye Chushue was shocked. This mutated general was more than 1 or 2 levels stronger than General Whitebones. Looking at Yongye Wuheng and the others, they were also in a bad situation. Not only did they have the power of devil, but they also had the pair of purple wings, which provided them with an endless supply of power of Azura. In addition, they could also use their second talent, which was strange and unpredictable. General Dark Star, who Yongye Wuheng was facing, had the talent of reflecting damage. No matter how much Yongye Wuheng hurt him, it was reflected back to Yongye Wuheng. In the end, General Dark Star was unharmed, but Yongye Wuheng was covered with cuts and bruises. The eldest prince was not much better off. He was strong, but he was facing General Gentle Beauty, who had the talent of absorbing attacks. He could not hurt her much, but he was slowly affected by General Gentle Beauty's illusion, and his movements gradually became slower. Only by Wanqing, with the help of the prying eye and the dream that lasts 1,000 years, managed to trap the other party. However, she could only trap him. The other party's mutated talent was the body of nothingness, so no attack was effective. Instead, if she was careless, her soul consciousness would be penetrated, and her soul would be destroyed. The 4 of them were in a precarious situation, and they were suddenly in great danger. Suyu saw this, and his expression was slightly cold. He raised his palm, and 30 earth dragon beasts and 30 superior extermination cannons flew out of the space ring. At the same time, they cooperated with the sacred sky warship, swallowing and spitting destructive beams of light to block the 4 attacking purple suns. With such powerful assistance, it was almost equivalent to double the previous strength. Consort Yunxia could not help but be solemn. She said, "Another weapon of civilization? Get into formation and defend." The 4 purple suns emitted dazzling light, sheltering them in it. Boom! Boom! Even more majestic bombardment, like Mercury falling to the ground, bombarded indiscriminately. Moreover, when one wave subsided, another wave came, causing them to lose the power to rush forward and could only passively defend. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Suyu left a residual shadow in the sky and went straight to the battlefield where Yongye Chushue and the others were fighting. Seeing this, the 4 of them calmed down a little and fought with all their might. Suyu first landed beside Yongye Chushue. Without saying a word, pitch-black scales gushed out of his body, and he transformed into the World Annihilation Dragon. The ferocious dragon head slammed into General Tun Ri. He grinned hideously. "You have no idea of death or danger. Even if the demonic god of 6 paths returns, he may not be able to shake my divine demon Vajra body. Do you think you can shake me with your little dragon transformation technique?" In the midst of his laughter, General Tun Ri's huge demonic claws slammed into Suyu's head. "Ha ha ha, the credit is mine." Bang! However, with a loud noise, General Tun Ri was knocked away by the World Annihilation Dragon, and he stumbled back dozens of steps. With a shocked look on his face, he said in horror, "How is this possible?" In response, the World Annihilation Dragon's giant claws slammed down on his head from above. General Tun Ri was not angry. Instead, he was delighted and laughed. "Well, let's fight head-on. Let's see who is afraid of whom." Suddenly, his demonic claws emerged with the power of Azura and slammed into Suyu. Bang! Bang! 2 loud noises sounded like thunder exploding in the sky. The 2 of them had chosen to exchange blows with each other. The earth-shattering battle caused the dust in all directions to fly into the sky. Everyone could only see a dragon and a majestic figure in the dust. Both of them had struck each other's vital parts. Crack! The soft sound of something shattering could be heard all over the place. When one looked closely, they saw that it was General Tun Ri's arm that had been shattered inch by inch. General Tun Ri was horrified, and his eyes were full of fear. "Your torso is, crack." The World Annihilation Dragon's claws pressed down, and General Tun Ri's entire body was shattered into pieces. The World Annihilation Dragon transformed into a human form. Suyu murmured lightly, "It is the body of rules." The 2 drops of ancient god Jiulong's blood had created Suyu's body of rules. Chapter 15:12. After killing Admiral Swallowing Sun, Suyu turned his cold eyes and stared at Admiral Dark Star, who was fighting with Yongye Wuheng. All of Yongye Wuheng's magical powers that hit Admiral Dark Star were strangely reflected back to him. All of Admiral Dark Star's magical powers landed on Yongye Wuheng's body. Therefore, Yongye Wuheng was at an absolute disadvantage and was seriously injured. Even so, he did not want to fall behind. Admiral Dark Star sneered. "My talent is invincible. You'd better lie down and accept your death, lest you suffer physical pain." Yongye Wuheng gritted his teeth, feeling very aggrieved. He had never fought with such a strange enemy. At that moment, a cold voice floated from behind Admiral Dark Star. "Invincible? Why don't you let me have a try?" Admiral Dark Star was shocked. What a powerful concealment technique! He did not sense it in advance when it appeared behind him. However, despite being shocked, Admiral Dark Star was not afraid. He even deliberately reacted a few times slower, deliberately waiting for the enemy to hurt him. The more the enemy hurt him, the deeper the damage would be returned to the enemy. It would be best if the enemy could kill him. A sinister smile bloomed on his lips. Boom! A cold touch penetrated his chest from his back. A golden sword pierced through his chest. Admiral Dark Star's sinister smile deepened. Instead of being angry, he sneered. Ha ha! How dare you kill me? Do you know what will happen to you? Behind him, Suyu held the golden flames forbidden wood long sword in his hand and gently pulled it back. He wiped the demonic blood on it and said indifferently, I don't know what will happen to me, but I know what will happen to you. Admiral Dark Star was taken aback and looked back at Suyu. Suyu was standing in the same place, safe and sound, with the yin and yang pattern slowly rotating under his feet. You are not hurt, Admiral Dark Star said. Suddenly, he realized that the pain in his chest was getting more and more intense. How is it possible? My injury did not return to me. Rest in peace. Suyu turned his wrist, and the long sword swept across his neck. His head flew up into the sky and fell to the ground with unwillingness. He did not lose his talent, but Suyu used the sky-splitting yin-yang style to return the damage to him through the yin-yang gate. The Dark Star General was full of confidence, so he died on the spot. In the blink of an eye, he had killed another person. Suyu's eyes were as cold as before, and he stared at the charming general who was entangled with the first prince. General Rou-mei focused on bewitching the first prince, causing the first prince to sink into it and his movements to gradually slow down. All of a sudden, the first prince revealed a fatal flaw. He flipped his palm over and took out a long, pitch-black nail. It was a replica of an emperor-based saint artifact that specialized in destroying living souls. He struck out with his palm and pierced it into the first prince's forehead. However, just at this moment, a ferocious force slapped toward the first prince from behind. The gentle admiral remained calm and composed. As the power approached, her body contorted strangely, like a ball of cotton that could be kneaded at will. When the energy struck his body, it was as if it had struck cotton. His body was pushed back lightly and landed on the ground without any injuries. Even though she was angry, she couldn't help but exude boundless charm. Who is it? Suyu stepped out from behind the first prince and stared at the charming general. It's you? General Rou-mei's beautiful eyes turned and found that General Tun Ri and General Enxing were already dead. Her pupils shrank slightly, but she still laughed delicately. What a powerful junior! I've heard of your reputation in the Holy Magic Hall. I didn't expect you to become even more powerful after so many years. I really want to rely on you. Suyu's eyes were crystal clear. He casually waved his sleeves, dispelling the illusory power that was invisible to the naked eye. He asked, die or live? General Rou-mei was slightly taken aback. Suyu's seemingly casual wave had actually dispelled the illusory power that she had secretly released. Concealing the strange look on her face, General Rou-mei laughed. Of course it's either you die or I die. Junior, do you really like to speak irresponsibly? As soon as she finished speaking, her body contorted again, forming a ball of cotton. She exerted a soft feminine palm energy and pressed it against Suyu's chest. Suyu's body didn't move. He nodded slightly. You choose death. General Rou-mei giggled. As if you can decide whether I live or die. Take my palm first. Suyu said, I can indeed decide whether you live or die, no matter what kind of physique you have. When he finished speaking, Suyu's right palm turned pitch black. He extended his finger and drew the word, die in the air. The word, die, traversed the void and landed on the cotton ball that General Rou-mei had transformed into. As always, General Rou-mei giggled. With her soft body, she dispersed the power that had entered her body and shook it off. However, after the word, die, entered her body, it was like an ant entering her marrow. It penetrated deep into every part of her body and kept spreading. No matter how she dispersed it, she couldn't stop the power in the slightest. Ah! This is the death rules." General Ro Mei's delicate voice changed, and she let out a terrified scream. However, it was only a scream. After that, there was no more sound. Her cotton-like body was completely pitch black. Then, like burnt cotton, she turned into shreds. In the blink of an eye, another general was killed. However, right at that moment, Bai Wanqing suddenly shouted, "Young master, be careful!" Before Su Yu could react, he heard a roar coming from the soul level. It was so shocking that his soul became numb. It was General Nothingness. While Su Yu was focused on dealing with General Ro Mei, he broke through Bai Wanqing's suppression and launched a sneak attack on Su Yu. With a swoosh, it drilled into Su Yu's body in a state of nothingness. Then, the surface of Su Yu's body glowed with an indeterminate gray brilliance. This was a sign that his soul had undergone a mutation. If it was strong, it meant that Su Yu's soul was safe and sound. If it was illusory, it meant that Su Yu's soul had been destroyed. The illusory brilliance on the surface of his body was constantly changing. The Yongye siblings and the first prince also rushed over, looking anxious. General Nothingness should be the most bizarre existence among them. He could devour souls directly. Who could stop him? Princess Yunxia, who was being suppressed, also showed a look of relief. She had never looked down on Su Yu, but she didn't expect that she would still look down on him. Not only did he find the long-lost sacred sky worship, but he also found 3 powerful people who were far beyond her imagination. What shocked her even more was that Su Yu's combat power was amazing. He killed 3 mutated generals by himself. Even if the demonic god of 6 paths returned, he wouldn't be able to kill them easily. After 8 years, what kind of opportunity did Su Yu encounter to increase his strength to such a terrifying degree? However, he will still die in the end. General Nothingness's ability to destroy souls is unparalleled, however. Just as Princess Yunxia's voice trailed off, Su Yu suddenly opened his eyes indifferently. "You really have a death wish. If you were in the state of nothingness, I might not be able to do anything to you easily, but you just had to break into my soul." A crack opened between Su Yu's brows, and a shocking force that devoured souls spread silently, wrapping Su Yu up. The soul that possessed Su Yu was caught off guard. It was wrapped up by the devouring force and dragged into the boundless abyss. With a shrill scream on the soul level, General Nothingness was also obliterated. His soul power was purified and integrated into Su Yu's soul. The soul of level 3 had increased Su Yu's soul power by a lot. The illusory gray brilliance on the surface of his body also slowly dimmed and eventually disappeared. General Nothingness was destroyed. Yongye Chushue and the others naturally heaved a sigh of relief, but Princess Yunxia's pretty face changed slightly. The 4 generals had been destroyed, and they were the only ones left. On the other hand, Su Yu and the others were almost unharmed. Together with the sacred sky warship, the earth dragon beasts, and the superior extermination cannons, they were at an absolute disadvantage. What was more worrying was that she was the one who persecuted the creatures of the demon realm. At this moment, apart from the 4 generals who were loyal to her, who else would be willing to fight for her? After analyzing the pros and cons, Consort Yunxia said decisively, "Break out of the encirclement and head to the Jingxian realm." The 4 generals let out a low roar and did their best to shake off the suppression coming from above. At the price of being injured, they forcefully resisted the attack. Borrowing the tyrannical power of the light pillar, they quickly flew toward Jingxian realm. Su Yu's eyes were cold. Leave a group of people to clean up the battlefield, capture the remaining demons of the second demon army alive, and interrogate them about Luo Xue's whereabouts. The rest of you, follow me. Staring at the distant Jingxian realm, Su Yu seemed to be able to see a giant as tall as the sky staring at him from a distance. The biggest threat of the demon realm was not the demon army, or even the many powerful generals, but the giant of the bitter sea. The real battle had just begun. The speed of the sacred sky warship was extremely fast. In an instant, it covered thousands of kilometers of mountains and rivers. Although the four great generals were extraordinary, they were far from being a match for the sacred sky warship. In less than a few hours, they were caught up. Su Yu did not say anything unnecessary. He ordered the sacred sky warship to bombard indiscriminately. He led Yongye Chushua and the others to cooperate with the bombardment of the four great demon generals and consort Yunxia. Although the four great generals had the second talent, under the double attack, how could they be a match? In particular, Su Yu's strength was extremely terrifying, and his first move was an absolute killing move. Puff! The wilderness demon general was careless, and half of his body was destroyed by Su Yu. Of the four great generals, only one was left. Consort Yunxia was shocked and shouted, "Quick! Use the first magical combination technique." The three great generals looked at each other, and with a fierce look in their eyes, they attacked and killed the seriously injured wilderness demon general at the same time. Even more cruelly, they ate him on the spot. After swallowing the wilderness demon general, the wings behind the three demon generals were even more dazzling, exuding an extremely evil purple light. Whoosh! Whoosh! The three pairs of wings flapped rapidly, emitting endless purple light, wrapping around the four people, including consort Yunxia. The next moment, the purple light ball suddenly disappeared, and the four people in it also disappeared together. Su Yu looked up abruptly, fixed his gaze on the Jingxian world, and said coldly, 300 million miles away, give chase. Half a day later, they were caught up again. After a short battle, the Bone Demon General was destroyed. However, he did not die in the hands of Su Yu, but was destroyed in the same way. The remaining two great generals protected consort Yunxia and flew away again. Su Yu said indifferently, 200 million miles away, continue the chase. The gods behind him were boiling with excitement. Chasing consort Yunxia was something unimaginable by the predecessors. But now, it was presented in front of them. On the contrary, consort Yunxia's face was as dark as the water, full of remorse. If she had known this would happen, she would not have killed Su Yu at all costs. Otherwise, she would not have ended up in this situation. Boom! This time, it only took half an hour for the opponent to catch up. Hundreds of light beams from the superior extermination cannons swept down. How could the remaining two great generals resist such peerless power? They were killed on the spot. Consort Yunxia saw that the situation was not good, took out a golden bell from her arms, and buckled herself upside down in it. Hundreds of light beams swept past, and the golden bell did not move. In this way, consort Yunxia escaped the disaster. Chapter 1513. Su Yu had seen this object in the Emperor-based Saint Artifact ranking. The Emperor-based Saint Artifact ranked 23rd was called the Tai Eastern Emperor Bell. It was rumored to be extremely hard. Unless the 9 emperors made a move, no one would be able to break it. Back then, it was in the hands of the overlord of the galaxy, Eastern Emperor Tai. Unexpectedly, it fell into the hands of Princess Yunxia. A cold light flashed. Su Yu had used his great magical powers, but he could do nothing to the Eastern Emperor Bell. Consort Yunxia stared at Su Yu with hatred, her face still showing the palpitations of having survived a disaster. She said sternly, Su Yu, today's humiliation will be returned 100-fold in the future. Su Yu stood in front of the Eastern Emperor Bell and stared at her coldly. Do you think that I can't do anything to you just because I can't deal with the Eastern Emperor Bell? As he spoke, Su Yu placed his palm on the Eastern Emperor Bell. The Milky Way star sand in his palm shone brightly, crazily absorbing the blood essence that consort Yunxia had injected into the Eastern Emperor Bell. Princess Yunxia's pretty face darkened. Milky Way star sand. I almost forgot that Tianjizi, that trash, gave it to you. Su Yu said indifferently, trash? He's someone who loves you dearly. Princess Yunxia looked at Su Yu with pity. Pitiful aunt, you don't understand anything. You don't even know who he is. He did not respond, because he had pondered this question for many years. As Su Yu's cultivation increased and he gained an understanding of the emperor-based saint artifact, how could he not understand how absurd it was for an all-creation strong man to possess an emperor-based saint artifact? Even the gods might not be able to touch the imitation, let alone the 21st-ranked real one. However, no one could answer this question. Su Yu calmly said, "No matter who he is, his feelings for you are not fake." Whoosh! A drop of essence blood was slowly extracted from the Grand Orient Bell. The Eastern Emperor Bell trembled slightly, showing some signs of loosening. Consort Yunxia knew that death was near, so she did not plead for mercy. She looked up to the sky and laughed. "So what if it's true love? There is only one person in my heart. Other than that, everything else is just fleeting clouds." A woman like Princess Yunxia still had true feelings? With pity, Su Yu took out the last drop of blood. With a buzzing sound, the Eastern Emperor Bell became a masterless object. Su Yu sucked in the air, and the Eastern Emperor Bell gradually shrank to the size of a palm, falling into his palm. An emperor-based saint weapon ranked 23rd could be said to be a rare and precious treasure. Su Yu immediately injected his own blood essence into it, refining it on the spot. Consort Yunxia saw it all, but there was nothing she could do. She could only watch as her life-saving treasure fell into Su Yu's hands. After the refinement was completed, Su Yu's gaze finally fell on Princess Yunxia. Without giving her any extra time, he said indifferently, "It's over." However, just as Su Yu was about to make his move, a pitch-black remnant shadow flew over from the distant horizon. By the time he saw the afterimage, it was already too late. An incomparably thick chain suddenly wrapped around Princess Yunxia and swept her away in an instant. Only then did the afterimage arrive. Chains. Su Yu stared at the direction in which the chains had retreated, his gaze grave. Puff! At the end of the world, in the boundless fog, the sound of chains rubbing against the ground suddenly rang out. His voice reverberated throughout the world and reverberated in everyone's hearts, causing them to feel goosebumps for no reason. Gradually, the fog rolled and a huge creature walked out of the fog. Sure enough, a gigantic pitch-black shadow that was tens of thousands of meters tall gradually appeared in the fog. All the gods held their breaths, but the sound of them gulping down their saliva could not be suppressed. The giant of the bitter sea, the legendary giant of the bitter sea. As the giant shadow grew bigger and bigger, the pressure on everyone became stronger and stronger. It was like an ant blocking the way of an elephant. Finally, the giant shadow arrived. The other party was thousands of miles away, but they could not see the head of the giant of the bitter sea. Before the battle officially began, all the gods were shocked by its huge size. Even Yongye Chushue, who had fought against the nine-headed god, was horrified. What kind of creature is this? Yongye Wuheng was deeply shocked. Su Yu said lightly, "The demon race, the descendant of the demon sword divine warrior. The cosmos sword formation passed down by the royal family of the demon realm was the essence of the demon sword divine warrior's life." Such a large demon? Yongye Chushue was also surprised. Sensing the unfathomable breadth of the other party, she said, "And its strength is unimaginably strong. It is on a completely different level from the level 2 deities." Su Yu's eyes were deep. Finally, the giant of the bitter sea. Bang! As the giant of the bitter sea stood still, his huge feet stepped on the ground, directly creating a huge pit that was millions of feet deep. The whole ground also trembled fiercely. A pair of huge bloody eyes coldly looked down at them on the ground. On its shoulder stood Princess Yunxia. She was trembling all over, not knowing whether it was because of the fear of surviving a disaster or because of the excitement of killing Su Yu and the others. The giant of the bitter sea did not speak. He took off the end of the chain from his waist indifferently and lashed it at Su Yu. He remembered Su Yu. The chain was extremely fast. When he saw the residual shadow, the attack had almost reached him. However, Su Yu's reaction was also extremely fast. At the moment when he attacked, he flashed like thunder. Almost at the moment when his body moved, the place where he originally stood was smashed by the sudden appearance of the chain. The whole ground was smashed by this chain, and endless magma spurted out, forming a magma lake. If Su Yu had been a little slower, he would have been seriously injured. The giant of the bitter sea turned over his wrist, and the chain swept violently on the ground, setting off a scorching fire along the way. Su Yu dodged again and was almost hit several times. The other gods also hurriedly dodged, for fear of touching the chain. Staring at the chain wrapped around his waist, Su Yu frowned deeply. In addition to the strength of the giant of the bitter sea, the most frightening thing about him was this chain. It was sturdy and could change in a myriad of ways. When he captured the gods in the past, it was also this chain. Once entangled, there was almost no possibility of breaking free. The chain was so tricky that Su Yu had to be serious. He shouted in a low voice, "Cannon of law, open!" Buzz, buzz. The machinery below the sacred sky ship rotated, revealing a gap, from which an extremely simple giant cannon hung. In terms of caliber, it was 10 times larger than the ordinary superior extermination cannon. The body of the cannon was engraved with many complex patterns, and vaguely inlaid with the characters of the heavenly book. A destructive energy that had been prepared for a long time expanded rapidly. A large phantom of the chain of law surrounded the giant cannon in layers. A destructive power that contained the power of the laws burst forth at this moment. A series of chains rushed out from the cannon of law, shrouding the giant of the bitter sea with destructive power. The entire demonic dimension was shaken at this moment. The mountains and rivers were shattered, and the sky and earth were cracked, exposing the world barrier. Within a range of hundreds of millions of miles of mountains and rivers, not even a blade of grass could grow. It was shattered into the original form of the barrier. The horror of this blow shocked everyone. This was the strongest blow of the sacred skyship, and it was also the blow that Su Yu had prepared for the giant of the bitter sea. Crack! The crisp sound of something snapping echoed in the surroundings. Looking over, the giant of the bitter sea retracted the chain at the critical moment and used it to block in front of him, using the chain to resist this peerless attack. Normally, this blow was enough to seriously injure a level 1 deity. However, he completely blocked this blow with the chain. Most of the chain was broken, but a small part was still connected. The giant of the bitter sea stared at the chain that was about to break. With a roar, the chain flew and whipped towards the sacred sky ship. "Retreat!" Su Yu shouted softly, and the sacred sky ship retreated hundreds of millions of miles in an instant. The chain whipped the bow of the sacred sky ship. However, the bow of the sacred sky ship, which was as sturdy as the sacred sky ship, was shattered into pieces. It was conceivable that, if they were hit by that blow, they would definitely die. The combat power of the giant of the bitter sea soared again. However, the most powerful blow of the sacred sky ship failed to completely destroy the chain. Next, the giant of the bitter sea, who was in a frenzy, whipped the chain and swept it around. Su Yu and the others could not get close to it at all. Yongye Chushue's eyes flashed and she swallowed hard. Is this the power of a level 1 deity? In front of him, they did not even have a chance to attack, let alone defeat him. Yongye Wuheng also said, "Is it time to retreat? We have no chance of winning in a battle with a level 1 deity." Even Bai Wanqing said, "Sir, my hunch is completely chaotic. I am afraid that the future is not going to be good. It is better to think about it in the long run." The deities nodded one after another. "Today we stepped into the demon dimension, killed 2 great demon armies, and killed all the generals of the Holy Magic Hall. This is already a great achievement. The giant of the bitter sea is not something we can deal with. We have no choice but to retreat." However, Su Yu shook his head calmly. "If we do not destroy the giant of the bitter sea, this trip will be in vain." After pondering for a moment, Su Yu took a deep breath and said, Attack that chain with all your strength. We must destroy it." He was determined. The deities gritted their teeth and joined the battle one after another. The sacred sky ship, the superior extermination cannon, the earth dragon beasts, thousands of warships, countless strong men, and Su Yu and the others attacked at the same time. This was the ultimate power of almost all the forces of the God Realm Empire. The giant of the bitter sea roared and swung the chain in all directions. With one sweep, a large number of warships were destroyed. Most of the energy of the bombardment was blown away, and a small number of them died instantly. Their attacks couldn't even touch the edge of the chain. Su Yu's eyes turned cold. This chain was too dangerous and had to be destroyed. Otherwise, the casualties would be even more tragic. 7,000 divine paths! At this moment, Su Yu shouted. 7,000 virtual shadows of deities appeared behind him, each of which was 10,000 feet tall. 7,000 virtual shadows of deities attacked at the same time. At the moment when the chain was about to hit, it was immediately captured. A pitch-black and rough chain was clearly visible. It carried an unparalleled power and swept through a large number of virtual shadows of deities. However, its sweeping momentum gradually slowed down. When more than half of the virtual shadows of deities were swept away, the chain was finally forcibly stopped. It was suppressed by the other 3,500 virtual shadows of deities. The giant of the bitter sea roared and struggled to twitch. The chain began to roll again. Seeing this, Su Yu shouted, "Everyone, attack that gap!" Boom! Boom! All kinds of magical powers turned into destructive attacks, bombarding the gap that was about to break. Chapter 15-14. Creak. The chain twitched at the last moment and was forcibly pulled out from the suppression of the gods. The huge force caused thousands of gods to be destroyed. Seeing that the giant of the bitter sea was about to swing the chain again, at the critical moment, Su Yu's left eye rushed into the sky, blooming a magnificent purple light. A chain phantom shot out from his left eye. Time law. Stop. Creak. The law descended, and the twitching chain stopped abruptly. The giant of the bitter sea staggered, and almost fell forward. He looked even more furious, and the veins on his arms bulged. He burst out with all his strength to pull out the chain. But at this time, their attack finally arrived. Tens of thousands of attacks of different power converged into a line and fell straight and accurately on the gap. Bang! With a violent cracking sound, the chain finally broke into two pieces. The giant of the bitter sea, who was pulling the other end of the chain, lost its balance and stepped back several steps. Finally, it sat on the ground, smashing tens of millions of miles of mountains and rivers. This scene caused the gods and creatures to be shocked. Su Yu said coldly, "All creatures attack." Boom! Boom! Thousands of attacks fell like raindrops, shrouding the giant of the bitter sea. The giant of the bitter sea lost the chain and only had a small part of his waist. He could not resist at all and could only bear it. The attacks of the ordinary gods and gods were still manageable, but the attacks of the sacred sky ship, the superior extermination cannon, and the earth dragon beast were not small injuries to him. Roar! The giant of the bitter sea was in pain on the ground and kept rolling. Seeing this scene, the gods were very excited. There was hope. They had the hope to kill the giant of the bitter sea who had threatened countless eras. However, on the shoulder of the giant of the bitter sea, Consort Yunxia showed a different expression. It seemed to be excitement, but also deep pity and sarcasm for Su Yu and the others. Su Yu also noticed that something was wrong. When he glanced at the broken chain, he suddenly thought of something. His face gradually changed, and finally, he could not help but show a trace of sadness. Could it be? Ha 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 ha! Suddenly, the painful roar of the giant of the bitter sea stopped abruptly and was replaced by laughter that had never been heard before. The laughter ran through the demon world and shook the galaxy for hundreds of millions of miles. The entire womb-shaped demon world collapsed everywhere, as if it was about to break. From afar, it looked as if a baby was about to be born. The gods froze on the spot. They looked at each other in shock and unease. Is he crazy? How can you still laugh after being attacked by us? Shouldn't you be paying attention to the giant of the bitter sea? He actually smiled. The first prince said in a deep voice, I've been in the demon realm for thousands of years, but this is the first time I've seen that the giant of the bitter sea can also smile. Something's not right. Something's not right. In their surprise, the giant of the bitter sea slowly stood up. There was no longer any pain on his huge face. There was only the pleasure of relief, excitement, and high spirits. That almost barbaric face was now filled with intelligence. When it looked down at the numerous living beings on the ground, it actually opened its mouth and said, Hee, I really have to thank all of you. This emperor. No, this emissary is finally free. Break free? The deities were at a loss. They stared at the broken chain and instantly understood something. What he's trying to say is that he was once bound by chains, but we cut the chains. The legion of gods couldn't believe what they were hearing. Weren't the chains his weapons? Why were they his restraints instead? The first prince was shocked and lost his voice. You actually spoke. Also, that chain is actually a seal that binds you? He was familiar with the secrets of the demon realm, but he never knew that the real role of the chain was not a weapon, but a thing that sealed him. On the shoulder of the giant of the bitter sea, Consort Yunxia couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Her eyes were moist, showing her inner excitement. This is God's will. It is God's will. I didn't expect to complete the Lord's task ahead of time. The first prince said in a deep voice, Consort, what is going on? Who is the Lord you are talking about? Consort Yunxia stared at him playfully and smiled deeply. You might as well ask Suyu. He is so smart, maybe he has already guessed it? The deities all looked at Suyu, their eyes full of confusion and confusion. Being stared at by everyone, Suyu's face did not ease a bit. It was terrifyingly calm. After a long while, he said, I was careless and fell for it. That chain may indeed be a seal. He blamed himself a little. When he saw the chain, he should have thought of a creature, the epoch-making dragon. He was trapped by the strange chain and could not move, let alone leave the forbidden land of 10,000 demons. The chain wrapped around the waist of the giant of the bitter sea seemed to be a weapon, but it might also be a seal that suppressed him. If not, why had he never stepped out of the demon realm for so many years? The reason was probably this chain that bound him in the demon realm, making him unable to leave. Unbeknownst to them, they had cut off the chains and unlocked the giant of the bitter sea. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Only the first prince shook his head and said, Impossible, he is the first demon emperor, the one who created the demon realm. Who can bind him here? However, Suyu's question made the first prince stiffen on the spot. Then, who told you that he is the first demon emperor? It was historical records. You mean, he is not the first demon emperor? The first prince stuttered, a little absent-minded. Suyu nodded, then shook his head. Not only is he not the first demon emperor, but he is not even a demon at all. What? The first prince was horrified. The second princess and the sixth princess, who were in the rear of the warship, were also dumbfounded. They could not believe that the giant of the bitter sea, who had existed in the bitter sea for millions of years, was not a demon? But he multiplied the demon race. There is no doubt about that, right? The first prince could not accept this reality. Suyu shook his head. This is what the historical records tell you. The one who created and multiplied the demon realm is someone else. Who? The first prince was puzzled. Suyu said, That is the person who trapped the giant of the bitter sea here. If I am not wrong, he should be a descendant of the demon sword divine warrior. However, for some reason, after sealing the giant of the bitter sea, he disappeared, leaving behind a group of descendants of the demon sword divine warrior. Then, you were deceived by the giant of the bitter sea, mistakenly believing that he was the first demon emperor, and you have been deceived until today." The first prince kept shaking his head at Su Yu's bold inference. "No, this is impossible. Everything is just speculation, there is no real evidence." Su Yu sighed. "How difficult is it to have real evidence? Why don't you ask the giant of the bitter sea, as a descendant of the demon sword divine warrior, why is he afraid of the golden flames forbidden wood? The golden flames forbidden wood is the main material for refining the Nine Suns sword formation, and the Nine Suns sword formation and the Cosmos sword formation of the demon realm are the essence of the demon sword divine warrior's lifetime. Do you still think it is reasonable for a descendant of the divine warrior to be afraid of the inheritance of his ancestors?" The first prince was stunned. Yes, he used to wonder why the giant of the bitter sea was afraid of the golden flames forbidden wood, and the golden flames forbidden wood happened to restrain the giant of the bitter sea. The strangest thing was that the blood of the giant of the bitter sea also happened to restrain the royal family. The two sides that could restrain each other were like natural enemies. How could they be creatures of the same bloodline? The first prince was shocked, and it took him a long time to gradually accept this absurd reality. "Ha ha ha ha!" The giant of the bitter sea looked up to the sky and laughed. He couldn't help but praise Su Yu. "You are indeed a junior who can escape from me. You are as intelligent as a demon. With just a few words, you can infer most of the whole picture. If I hadn't been patient, you wouldn't have discovered the secret of the chain. I am afraid you would have seen through me." These words supported Su Yu's guess. "Yes, I was accidentally discovered by the descendants of the demon sword divine warrior and sealed here. He originally intended to use me to nourish the descendants of the demon sword divine warrior, but halfway through, he was summoned by a mysterious powerful person and forgot about me here." The giant of the bitter sea's eyes were full of resentment. "What do you think the bitter sea is for? It's used to corrode this emissary's cultivation. Fortunately, he gave up halfway. Otherwise, if he had completed the layout of the bitter sea, the corrosion would have been unbearable even for me at that time. For tens of millions of years, I have been trying to find a way to break free from the seal. Finally, I came up with a plan to escape. I practiced the curse of reincarnation of 10,000 demons and gradually transformed myself into a demon. This seal is ineffective against demons. If everything goes well, I can get out of it. In fact, I am now mostly a demon. As long as I devour the current royal family of the demon race, I will be successful. Unfortunately, tens of millions of years ago, the undead demon emperor sensed that I was suspicious and refused to be my food. He escaped from the demon realm. I could only wait for tens of millions of years, preparing to drive the demon realm to find the undead demon emperor in the galaxy. But the giant of the bitter sea looked at the broken chain on his waist and couldn't help but laugh. "Who would have thought that you would accidentally break the seal? I saved the effort of looking for the undead demon emperor and got out of it directly." Hearing this, the deity's hearts sank to the bottom. They had actually released a sealed, primordial monster. The giant of the bitter sea looked down at them, and the corners of his mouth cracked into a ferocious arc. "I have told you the truth. As a token of gratitude, I have decided to give you a quick death. Azura sword." The giant of the bitter sea shouted in a low voice. The bitter sea behind him rolled, and a blood-red long sword broke through the huge waves and flew to the front of the giant of the bitter sea. The blood sword was 5 million feet long, almost half the length of the giant of the bitter sea. With a casual sweep, it could destroy the creatures within a radius of 5 million miles. Back then, this Azura sword was also sealed. It has been sinking in the bitter sea for hundreds of millions of years. "Thank you for your hard work." The giant of the bitter sea stroked the long sword with a nostalgic look on his face. He immediately said, "After so many years of silence, you must have not been bloodthirsty for a long time, right?" With a sweep of his bloody eyes, he stared at everyone present. Su Yu's pupils shrank, and the words Azura sword lingered in his mind. On the list of Emperor-based Saint artifacts, the 9th item was the Azura sword. Chapter 15:15. It was actually an item of the Giant of the Bitter Sea, and the Giant of the Bitter Sea was actually the mysterious person who almost defeated the Tai Ching Emperor. Endless shock reverberated in Su Yu's heart. At this moment, the Giant of the Bitter Sea raised the Azura sword, and the sword light was piercingly cold, reflecting all living beings on the ground. He grinned and said, "Congratulations on becoming the first blood sacrifice since the birth of the Azura sword." Chila, the Azura sword slashed down from the sky, shattering the entire demon world, revealing the galaxy outside. The boundless sword edge exterminated all life with an unstoppable momentum. Standing under the sword energy, Su Yu felt as if there was nowhere to hide in this vast world. It seemed like no matter how he dodged, he couldn't avoid this heaven-destroying sword. At the critical moment, Su Yu bit the tip of his tongue fiercely. The sharp pain jolted him awake. His expression gradually calmed down. With a wave of his hand, a snow-white disk appeared in his palm. He said, "Do you think you're invincible just because you've escaped?" With that, the disk expanded in size, becoming 10 times the size of the sacred sky warship in the blink of an eye. Due to its massive size, the already fragmented demonic world completely exploded. There were spatial cracks and vortexes everywhere, and it was extremely dangerous. Su Yu shouted, "All personnel, give up fighting and enter the sacred sky warship and the world annihilation plate." Swish, swish, swish. They had long since lost their will to fight, including Yongye Chushue. Under this sword, all of their abilities were futile. It was impossible for them to contend against it. They quickly retreated into the weapons of the two universal civilizations. The appearance of the world annihilation plate stunned the Giant of the Bitter Sea. It was only when the hundreds of world annihilation cannons on the world annihilation plate gathered their energy into the small ball in the middle that his expression finally changed. He gasped, "Could this be?" Su Yu said coldly, "Fortunately, you haven't forgotten." Bang! The sphere was filled with energy, and an extremely terrifying pillar of destructive light burst out. In terms of terror, it was several times stronger than the sacred sky warship. Just the phantoms of the great Tao laws that were attracted were as many as the hairs on a cow. The expression of the Giant of the Bitter Sea changed dramatically. It remembered the scene where its body was accidentally penetrated by a terrifying force. However, compared to the beam of light before him, the attacks he had suffered at that time were like aftershocks, almost negligible. In the blink of an eye, the Azura sword that the Giant of the Bitter Sea had slashed down seemed to be alive, twisted at a strange angle and blocked the blow. But the remaining beam of light still pierced through the Giant of the Bitter Sea. He couldn't help but let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire body was smashed like a sieve. Su Yu shuddered. Even at such a close distance, it had not been able to kill him. This Azura sword was really troublesome. If the Shura sect sword had not blocked most of the attack, the Giant of the Bitter Sea would have died. But now, he had only suffered some minor injuries. The Giant of the Bitter Sea fell into a boundless rage. Its remaining bloody eye was filled with killing intent. It said with resentment, "Little bastard! You're ruining this emissary's plans, I'll destroy you!" With that said, the Azura sect sword slashed down from the sky, carrying with it the power of annihilation and the will to kill. Su Yu's heart trembled. Clenching his teeth, he took out a palm-sized cauldron from his bosom and threw it into the air. Instantly, the small cauldron grew in size, and in the blink of an eye, it was 300 meters in size. Compared with the Azura sect sword, the enlarged divine nine-dragon cauldron was still like a speck of dust. However, this speck of dust, when the Azura sect sword slashed on it, was like a kitchen knife slashing on an iron bar. With a bang, it was bounced off. The Giant of the Bitter Sea, who was holding the long sword, was momentarily careless. His arms shook violently, and his bones shattered on the spot. The Azura sect sword in his hand fell. On the other hand, the divine nine-dragon cauldron did not move at all. It was as hard as a rock. The giant of the bitter sea was shocked. What is it? He had never seen anything in the world that could block the Azura sect sword. Back then, the Taiqing Emperor's Tai Chi Yin Yang wings were almost destroyed by the Azura sect sword. Looking at it, it was a simple little cauldron carved with 9 divine dragons, which looked exceptionally mysterious. The giant of the bitter sea was stunned for a moment. It seemed a little familiar. When he searched in his mind, he was shocked. The Taoist artifact of the ancient god Jilong, the divine nine-dragon cauldron? How could it be in your hands? Wait, it's mine. The giant of the bitter sea realized, and his face showed ecstasy. He grabbed it with his huge palm. However, Princess Yunxia, who was on his shoulder, suddenly said hurriedly, "Be careful, your Azura sect sword." When the Azura sect sword fell, Su Yu had deployed the world annihilation plate, opened the cavern world inside, and put the 5 million feet long Azura sect sword into it. At present, more than half of the sword body had been put in. The giant of the bitter sea turned his head to look, and his heart was filled with anger. However, he had no mind to care about it. All he could see was the divine nine-dragon cauldron. However, just as he was about to grasp the divine nine-dragon cauldron, the 3 flying dragons above it let out a loud dragon roar at the same time. The dragon roars of time, space, and soul turned into the power of law. The divine nine-dragon cauldron disappeared into thin air, as if it had never been there. Almost at the same time, Su Yu's palm flashed, and the divine nine-dragon cauldron shrank to the size of a palm and returned to his palm. Putting it in his arms, Su Yu immediately jumped onto the World Annihilation Plate. At this moment, the World Annihilation Plate just happened to store the Azura sect sword. Without saying a word, Su Yu took back the Sacred Sky ship with one hand, and with the other, he grabbed the broken chain on the ground. He maneuvered the World Annihilation Plate, shuttled through the broken demonic dimension, and instantly disappeared without a trace. The giant of the bitter sea laughed angrily. Not only did he not get the divine nine-dragon cauldron, but the Azura sect sword was also taken away. Well, even the seal chain on the ground was taken away. You find, die. The giant of the bitter sea sneered, and with a punch, smashed the demonic dimension that was blocking his body, and took a step forward. In an instant, all the stars within a radius of 10 million miles were crushed by the powerful aura of this one step. Snatch my Azura sect sword, humph. Even the Taiqing Divine Emperor did not have the ability to do so. The giant of the bitter sea sneered. If the Azura sect sword could be so easily snatched away, why did the descendant of the demon sword Divine Emperor not take the Azura sect sword away? It was not that he did not want to, but with the strength of the descendant of the demon sword Divine Emperor, he could not do it. The giant of the bitter sea stared in the direction where the World Annihilation Plate disappeared, and hooked his finger. Come back! Hundreds of millions of galaxies away, the World Annihilation Plate was fleeing rapidly. In the inner world of the cavern, a long sword that was 50 million feet long was lying quietly. Su Yu was standing on the body of the sword, using the Milky Way star sand to quickly extract the imprint in it. However, after a long time of trying, he could only extract a tiny trace of blood, which was almost negligible. The crane deity said, "Master, the grade of this object is far above the Milky Way star sand. In addition, the cultivation of the original owner was very powerful, and the divine blood is extremely stubborn. To completely erase the imprint, I am afraid it will take several years of continuous purification." Several years? Su Yu frowned. I am afraid we can't even wait for a moment. Just as Su Yu's voice trailed off, the Azura sect sword vibrated abruptly. The cold tip of the sword pierced through several cabins, and pressed against the back of the World Annihilation Plate. The Azura sect sword emitted an amazing power of Azura, which resisted the pushing force of the World Annihilation Plate, and sped towards the demonic dimension with the help of the World Annihilation Plate. "Oh no! We are retreating quickly!" Yongye Wuheng's grave voice came from the control room. Su Yu's face fell. Clenching his teeth, he said, "Open the space and let this sword out." The only way was to give up this great treasure. Otherwise, if it was brought back to the side of the giant of the bitter sea, all of them would die. They had no trump card to kill the giant of the bitter sea. Their only option was to escape. Crack! The space below was opened. However, the Azura sect sword had its own consciousness. It produced a power of Azura on its own, which prevented the sword from falling into the World Annihilation Plate. Su Yu's face changed abruptly. "Humph! You are courting death. Soul devouring." A thread of power of devouring appeared between Su Yu's brows, which shone on the Azura sect sword abruptly. Since the Azura sect sword had a sword spirit, it must have a soul. As expected, as soon as the power of devouring appeared, the Azura sect sword trembled. However, it was extremely tenacious. It did not yield immediately. Instead, it sped up and retreated rapidly against the World Annihilation Plate. Everyone was shocked. Was it going to escape by jumping off the ship? If so, the World Annihilation Plate, which Su Yu had spent many years on, would fall into the hands of the enemy. How could Su Yu be willing to accept this? Just then, two shadows rushed in like lightning from the open space entrance without any warning. Yongye Chushu yelled, "Who are you?" When she saw the two figures clearly, her eyes turned cold and she attacked without hesitation. "Miss Yongye, please calm down." One of them reached out and blocked her attack, defusing it effortlessly. Yongye Chushu said coldly, "Zhan Wushuang, how dare you come here? Because of you, Sister Xue's life and death are unknown. She has also disappeared from the demonic dimension. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to find you to settle the score." Zhan Wushuang said apologetically, "I didn't want to, but please give me a chance to make up for it. She has disappeared." "How are you going to make up for it?" Yongye Chushu did not buy it. Zhan Wushuang said, "I may not be good at finding people, but I am good at suppressing the world's divine weapon." He looked at the Azura sect sword, which had evil intentions, with a faint smile. Yongye Chushu was skeptical. She asked, "You are not lying to us again?" "I am telling the truth." Zhan Wushuang nodded and cupped his fists at Su Yu. "I wanted to help Brother Su to rescue Miss Luo, but I am willing to help Brother Su suppress this sword. Consider it my compensation." Su Yu looked at him and then at Han Xian, who was glaring at him, and nodded. "Sure, if you can suppress it, I will not blame you for what happened to Xue." Zhan Wushuang laughed. "If so, I will begin." He came in front of the Azura sect sword. For some unknown reason, the Azura sect sword trembled inexplicably with a hint of fear. Su Yu was secretly surprised. In terms of strength, the artifact spirit of the Azura sect sword should be able to sense that Su Yu was stronger than it. However, it was not afraid of Su Yu at all. Instead, it was afraid of Zhan Wushuang. "Emperor Killing Sword!" Zhan Wushuang shouted in a low voice. A strange-looking long sword with teeth marks on both sides appeared above his head. As soon as the sword appeared, the Azura sect sword let out a trembling cry, as if it was intimidated by the virtual shadow. What was even more peculiar was that the crane deity's face was also filled with fear. His eyes flickered and finally, he turned into starlight and returned to Su Yu's palm.